Chapter 38-36. I'm going to find Yi Wuye. Jun Jinxing's eyes were trembling. He didn't respond to Nie Tian. Instead, he suddenly picked up Mu Shuyan and growled. Are you crazy? Nie Tian frowned and stood in front of Jun Jinxing. Aren't you going to die if you go to Yi Wuye now? Jun Jinxing and Mu Shuyan had just escaped from the Yi family. If they were to go back now, wouldn't that be suicide? I can die, but Shuyan and the child can't. Jun Jinxing's eyes were filled with murderous intent as he said cold. Do you think Mu Shuyan and the child will be fine if you die? Nie Tian looked gloomy. He stared at Jun Jinxing and said, I think you know better than me what kind of person Yi Wuye is. Do you think he will let Mu Shuyan and the child go if you die in front of him? Didn't you hear what he said to you back then? If you die, even if Mu Shuyan and the child survive, they will suffer a fate worse than death. Do you want to see that happen? Every single word was like a clap of thunder that resounded in Jun Jinxing's ears. He froze on the spot, unable to take another step forward. But don't worry, I won't kill Mu Shuyan or the child. I'll raise him up and make him call me father. I'll let him know that a man named Jun Jinxing is a complete and utter scum. Ha ha! Yi Wuye's words echoed in Jun Jinxing's mind again. Every word and sentence was like a steel needle, ruthlessly piercing his heart. I can't die. After a while, Jun Jinxing came to his senses and said in horror. He finally understood that if he died, Mu Shuyan and the child would only be more miserable. The Mu family couldn't save Mu Shuyan and the child. Only he could. You can save Shuyan, right? Jun Jinxing calmed down. He slowly put Mu Shuyan down and turned to look at Nie Tian, asking in panic. I don't know. Nie Tian frowned and said, I need to know what happened to Mu Shuyan first. Yes. Jun Jinxing nodded and began to talk about Mu Shuyan. He still had his suspicions about Nie Tian, but now he had no choice but to believe in Nie Tian. Jun Jinxing, Mu Shuyan, and Yi Wuye were all disciples of the St. Rock Institute. They were all under the same teacher, and they spent a lot of time together. Jun Jinxing regarded Yi Wuye as a true friend and even a brother. He had even saved Yi Wuye's life several times. However, it was this good brother that he recognized as the most miserable person in the world. Mu Shuyan and Jun Jinxing had been together for a long time, but they didn't make it public. Only a few people close to them knew about it, including Yi Wuye. A few months ago, Mu Shuyan had suddenly contracted a strange illness. Black runes had appeared on her abdomen, looking extremely strange. After Jun Jinxing found out, he was very worried, but there was nothing he could do. In the end, he turned to Yi Wuye for help. After Yi Wuye learned about it, he told Jun Jinxing that only the Holy Knight Chalcedony of the St. Rock Institute could save Mu Shuyan. Jun Jinxing had no choice but to take the risk and steal the Holy Knight Chalcedony. However, after Yi Wuye took the Holy Knight Chalcedony, he reported Jun Jinxing, causing Jun Jinxing to be expelled from the St. Rock Institute. Not long after Jun Jinxing left the St. Rock Institute, he heard the news that Mu Shuyan was going to marry Yi Wuye. Nie Tian knew everything that happened after that. According to you, the runes on Mu Shuyan's body appeared a few months ago, right? After listening to Jun Jinxing, Nie Tian couldn't help but frown. He had a strange expression on his face. Everything seemed to be a little too strange. Mu Shuyan was pregnant a few months ago, and the runes on her abdomen also appeared a few months ago. Was this really just a coincidence? More importantly, Nie Tian felt that Yi Wuye had long known that Mu Shuyan would fall ill. Yes. Jun Jinxing nodded. Then he suddenly thought of something and asked in shock, could the runes on Shuyan's body be Yi Wuye's doing? What do you think? Nie Tian's lips curled into a cold smile as he asked. Yi Wuye had long known that Mu Shuyan had such runes on her body, but he still wanted to marry her. This meant that he had full confidence that he could cure Mu Shuyan. There was only one possibility for Yi Wuye to be so confident about curing such a strange illness, and that was that it was all his doing. This be asterisk starred. Jun Jinxing finally understood. His eyes trembled and revealed a cold look, as if he wanted to eat someone alive. After a while, Jun Jinxing calmed down and asked carefully, Mr. Nie, do you have a way to save Shuyan? Tian frowned and said nothing. He was waiting for Fat Cat to speak. Of course, he didn't know how to save Mu Xiuyin. He didn't even know what was going on with Mu Xiuyin. Tian, this is the heart-devouring curse. Fat Cat was silent for a long time before she spoke in a deep voice. However, her face was very ugly. Heart-devouring curse. Tian's eyes narrowed and he asked directly, "Do you have a way?" The runes on the heart-devouring curse are not complicated and can be easily broken. However, I don't have a way to break the blood curse. Fat Cat's face was gloomy and she said awkwardly, "Why?" Tian frowned and asked. The heart-devouring curse uses the power of the bloodline as a guide. Therefore, this blood curse can only be broken by the power of the person who cast the curse, Fat Cat said in a deep voice, looking helpless. Tian's expression changed slightly, and he suddenly understood. The heart-devouring curse should have been cast by Yi Wuye. The curse contained the power of his bloodline. Therefore, in order to break the curse, the power of his bloodline must be needed. As long as we catch the person who cast the curse and use the power of his bloodline, we can break the curse, right? Tian became cold and asked in a deep voice. Yes. Fat Cat nodded. Tian took a deep breath and his expression didn't relax at all. He wasn't completely sure that Yi Wuye was the person who cast the curse on Mu Xiuyin. However, even if Yi Wuye wasn't the person who cast the curse, he would definitely know who it was. It had to be said that Yi Wuye was really sinister. He cast the blood curse on Mu Xiuyin so that Mu Xiuyin could only look for him obediently. "Mr. Nye, do you have a way?" Jun Jinxing couldn't help but ask when he saw Nye Tian's expression changing and he didn't speak for a long time. Chapter 38-37. Jun Jinxing's face was solemn. He turned around and was about to settle the score with Yi Wuye, but was stopped by Nye Tian. "Jun Jinxing, if you want to save Mu Xiuyin, you must remain calm." Nye Tian said gloomily, "I know you're angry and anxious, but at times like this, you must remain calm. Otherwise, things will only get worse. Xiuyin's life is in danger. How do you expect me to remain calm?" Jun Jinxing growled, but he held back and did not leave. "The heart-devouring curse seal on Mu Xiuyin won't kill her for now." Nye Tian frowned and said in a low voice. Jun Jinxing nodded and calmed down. However, Nye Tian's expression was not good. Instead, it became even gloomier. The heart-devouring curse seal wouldn't kill Mu Xiuyin in a short period of time, but it posed a great threat to the fetus in her body. The heart-devouring curse seal was located on Mu Xiuyin's abdomen. The curse power penetrated through her belly button and slowly seeped into the fetus body. Fat Cat estimated that if the curse was not removed within 3 days, the fetus in Mu Xiuyin's womb would not be able to survive. Nye Tian did not tell Jun Jinxing about this. He was afraid that the latter would lose control again. 3 days. I only have 3 days. Nye Tian reminded himself in his heart. His face was even gloomier. "Mr. Nye, what should we do now?" Jun Jinxing calmed down and asked Nye Tian. He had unknowingly trusted Nye Tian completely. "Take a rest first. I'll give you 1 day. You must completely control the power of your bloodline. You must not lose control of your bloodline again." Nye Tian frowned and said in a low voice. Jun Jinxing nodded heavily. His eyes were as firm as steel. "Ruiyu, for the next few days, you and Mu Xiuyin will stay in 9 extremities. Please take care of her." Nye Tian turned to look at Rui Qinyu and nodded. Rui Qinyu nodded. She lifted Mu Xiuyin up and entered the 9 extremities. After that, Nye Tian and Jun Jinxing rested and recovered in the valley. They only had 3 days, but Jun Jinxing was too unstable and Nye Tian was seriously injured, so they needed time to recover and stabilize. In a day's time, Nye Tian could be sure that he was almost fully recovered, but he wasn't sure if Jun Jinxing could completely control the power of his bloodline. In the blink of an eye, a day had passed. Nye Tian stood up once more. His aura was much sharper than before. The wounds and fatigue on his body were completely gone. "Jun Jinxing, how are you?" Nye Tian took a deep breath and asked Jun Jinxing. He was still worried about Jun Jinxing. Yes. Jun Jinqing nodded. Although his answer was firm, there was still some uncertainty in his eyes. He did not know if he could truly control the power of his bloodline. He did not expect that after the mutation of his bloodline, the power of his bloodline would become so strong. It was far beyond his expectations. At this moment, Jun Jinqing looked at Nie Tian in shock. Yesterday, he saw that Nie Tian was seriously injured, and he had used up a lot of his energy. But now, Nie Tian had completely recovered. If the same injury were to happen to other warriors, it would take at least a month or even a few months to recover. But Nie Tian only needed 1 day to recover. Such a strong recovery ability was shocking. Let's go. Nie Tian smiled faintly. He first entered the 9 extremities, and after confirming that Mu Shuiyan's condition was stable, they set off. After leaving the valley, they headed straight for 9 Variation City. Along the way, Nie Tian asked Jun Jinqing about the situation in 9 Variation City. Although Jun Jinqing was not from 9 Variation City, he often came to 9 Variation City with Mu Shuiyan, so he knew a lot about the situation in the city. How strong is the Mu family compared to the Yi family? Nie Tian asked with a frown after listening to Jun Jinqing's introduction. He was very confused. Since the Mu family and the Yi family were among the top 3 families in 9 Variation City, they should be very strong. Did the Mu family not know the truth about Mu Shuiyan's marriage to Yi Wuyi? If the Mu family knew the truth, why didn't they stop it? Why did they send Mu Shuiyan to the Yi family? From Jun Jinqing's words, Nie Tian could tell that Mu Shuiyan's position in the Mu family was very high, and her father was the Mu family patriarch, which father would push his daughter into a pit of fire with his own hands. Although the Mu family is one of the top 3 families in 9 Variation City, its strength is slightly weaker than the other 2 families. In recent years, many experts of the Mu family have died mysteriously. Their strength is not as good as before, and they're showing signs of falling out of the top 3 families. Jun Jinqing understood what Nie Tian meant. He said in a low voice, "So, the Mu family strength is actually far from the Yi families, right?" Nie Tian frowned, and his face was a little gloomy. You can say that. Although Jun Jinqing was helpless, he could only nod. No wonder the Mu family didn't object to Mu Shuiyan's marriage. Nie Tian nodded, and he understood a little. He guessed that the Mu family might have made some concessions to the Yi family in regards to Mu Shuiyan's marriage. Half an hour later, Nie Tian and Jun Jinqing finally arrived outside 9 Variation City. The two concealed their auras and slightly adjusted their appearances. Then, they entered 9 Variation City. At this moment, the security in 9 Changes City was obviously much tighter than before. Nie Tian and Jun Jinqing carefully passed through the guards' checks. On the streets of the city, portraits of Nie Tian and Jun Jinqing were plastered everywhere. It was obvious that the Yi family had launched a citywide search for the 2 of them. From this, it could be seen that the Yi family already knew that Nie Tian and Jun Jinqing would return. "Mr. Nie, the Yi residence is in front." Jun Jinqing frowned and carefully transmitted his voice to Nie Tian. "Let's go to the Mu residence first." The corner of Nie Tian's mouth twitched as he replied in a low voice. "Mu residence?" Jun Jinqing was stunned, and his face was filled with doubt. He originally thought that Nie Tian would bring him to the Yi residence to capture Yi Wuya. He never expected that Nie Tian would go to the Mu residence first. Although he was curious, he did not ask anything. A brief moment later, Nie Tian and Jun Jinqing arrived outside the Mu residence. "Mr. Nie, where do we go in?" Jun Jinqing looked at Nie Tian and asked. The security in the Mu residence wasn't any weaker than the Yi residence, so it wouldn't be easy to enter. Nie Tian's face was dark as he looked around and pondered. Chapter 38:38. The sudden voice had caused Nie Tian's face to change and his voice to tremble. That voice was completely unfamiliar, but it knew his name, which instantly made him feel uneasy. What's even weirder was that both he and Jun Jinqing had changed their appearances, so how did the other party recognize him? Furthermore, judging from the other party's tone, that person seemed to have been waiting for him. "Let's talk in a Mu abode." The voice resounded once more. Knitting his brows, Nietion's face sank. He couldn't sense the source of the voice. It seemed that this person was from the Mu clan, and his position in the Mu clan wasn't low. Mr. Nyat, what's going on? Jun Jianxing couldn't help transmitting his voice when he saw the change in Nietion's face. Let's enter the Mu abode. Nietion's gaze sank as he nodded his head. Enter the Mu abode? Jun Jianxing was stunned and couldn't react for a brief moment. But at this moment, Nietion had already walked over. Although Jun Jianxing was puzzled, he still followed up. When the two of them entered the Mu abode, the guards on both sides did not move, nor did they obstruct them. It was as if they did not see Nietion and Jun Jianxing. This way, please. The moment they entered the Mu abode, an azure-clothed old man walked over with a respectful attitude as he carefully led the way. Hearing this, Nietion's brows knitted even deeper with more doubts in his heart. It looked like someone had been waiting for him in the Mu abode and had already made preparations. A brief moment later, Nietion and Jun Jianxing arrived at the Mu abode's hall under the lead of the azure-clothed old man. Before he even entered the hall, he could already see a white-clothed middle-aged man sitting in the hall with a cold expression. His face was filled with the vicissitudes of life. It's him. When Nietion saw the white-clothed man, his gaze sank with shock in his heart. He could sense that the person that spoke to him was that white-clothed man. He's the patriarch of the Mu clan, Shuyan's father, Mu Jiuchuan. At this moment, Jun Jianxing transmitted his voice to Nietion. Knowing the white-clothed man's identity, Nietion squinted his eyes and his face sank once more. Please take a seat. The azure-clothed old man bowed and invited Nietion and Jun Jianxing into the hall before leaving. As Nietion and Jun Jianxing walked into the hall, Mu Jiuchuan's eyes never left Nietion, as if he was very curious about him. Junior Jun Jianxing pays his respects to the Mu patriarch. Jun Jianxing was very cautious. He bowed slightly to Mu Jiuchuan. After all, he had a special relationship with Mu Shuyan. Is it the Mu clan chief? Mu Jiuchuan then shifted his gaze to Jun Jianxing and let out a strange laugh, as if he was dissatisfied with the way Jun Jianxing addressed him. Jun Jianxing's gaze froze as if he had been seen through. He looked a little embarrassed. Mu God, Mu Tian. Mu Jun Mu. You don't know me, but I know you. Mu Jiuchuan smiled and said, among my daughter's dowry attendants, there's a lady called Mu Yu. You're the one who escorted her here. Her brother, Mu Chun, is here too. Am I right? Nietion's eyes squinted as he immediately understood what was going on. It seemed like Mu Jiuchuan knew about him from Mu Yu and Mu Chun. Previously, he was worried about Mu Yu and Mu Chun. However, it seemed like they were being controlled by the Mu clan's patriarch in the Mu clan. In fact, it was nothing strange. The Mu clan had to investigate the matter thoroughly since the young lady of the Mu clan was kidnapped on her wedding day. On that day, Nietion was very eye-catching. Not only did he fight with Jun Jianxing and the Yi clan, he even had a conflict with the cultivators of the Mu clan. Therefore, it was normal for the Mu clan to know about him through Mu Yu and Mu Chun. Are Mu Yu and Mu Chun all right? Nietion asked with a smile. Since Mu Jiuchuan was waiting for him, it meant that Mu Jiuchuan needed him. At the same time, it also meant that Mu Yu and Mu Chun were safe. They're fine. Mu Jiuchuan smiled faintly as he looked at Nietion with a strange look in his eyes. A strange smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Patriarch Mu, why don't you just say it? Nietion smiled when he sensed Mu Jiuchuan's strange expression. With a faint smile, Mu Jiuchuan asked, do you know why I was able to recognize you so easily, Nietion? Nietion's lips twitched as he waited for Mu Jiuchuan to continue. He was confused as to why Mu Jiuchuan was able to recognize him even though he had never seen him before. Not to mention that he had changed his appearance. It's because there's an unusual aura in your body. At that instant, Mu Jiuchuan's expression changed all of a sudden. His eyes flickered coldly, which quickly turned into murderous intent as he uttered in a deep voice, Heaven punishing demonic chi. Heaven punishing demonic chi. Upon hearing these words, Nietion's eyes couldn't help but darken. His expression changed as he was greatly shocked. He did not expect Mu Jiuquan to recognize him through the heaven-punishing demonic qi in his body. It was true that Nie Tian had absorbed some heaven-punishing demonic qi when he was at the 7th Cultivator's Sacred World. However, he thought that he had already refined the demonic qi. Moreover, he couldn't even sense the existence of the demonic qi at all. How could he not be surprised that Mu Jiuquan was able to sense the heaven-punishing demonic qi in his body after such a long time? More importantly, why was Mu Jiuquan so sensitive to the heaven-punishing demonic qi? Was there some kind of relationship between Mu Jiuquan and the Netherworld Emperor? At that moment, Nie Tian immediately recalled that the Netherworld Emperor had asked him to look for the Mu clan of Qin City. His heart skipped a beat. He was almost certain that the Mu clan of Qin City mentioned by the Netherworld Emperor was the Mu clan of Nine Changes City. Brat, what's the relationship between you and that person? At that moment, the murderous intent in Mu Jiuquan's eyes intensified. He suddenly took a step forward and let out a deep roar. His aura surged out and pressed down on Nie Tian like a raging wave. Mu clan leader. The sudden turn of events shocked Jun Jianxing, and he couldn't help but shout. He could not understand why Mu Jiuquan, who had been wearing a friendly expression, would suddenly emit a murderous intent. Nie Tian frowned. His body trembled slightly, and the ground under his feet sank by 3 inches. The bluestone floor immediately shattered. Mu Jiuquan was a 9th-tier heavenly righteousness great sage expert. He was 1 major realm higher than Jun Jianxing. The pressure from his aura was extremely terrifying. If Nie Tian was an ordinary 5th-tier heavenly mandate realm cultivator, he would have been crushed to death by now. Chapter 38-39. Mu Jiuquan released his aura to oppress Nie Tian, but Nie Tian did not react to it. Nie Tian was surprised. Mu clan leader, you are not strong enough to defeat me with your aura. Then, with a shake of his body, he shattered Mu Jiuquan's aura. Mu Jiuquan looked at him coldly. The entire hall shook as if it was about to collapse. Mu Jiuquan took a few steps back and stabilized himself. His eyes were shaking in fear. He had not expected that this warrior in the 5th level of the Heavenly Mandate Realm would be so terrifying that he could break through his aura. Jun Jianxing watched from the side, his heart trembling with fear, his expression shocked. He was confident that he was not afraid of Mu Jiuquan's aura. However, he was at the 1st level of the Heavenly Mandate Realm, while Nie Tian was only at the 5th level of the Heavenly Mandate Realm. At this moment, he realized how terrifying Nie Tian was. Mu clan leader, I don't know why you attacked me, but I want to tell you that I am not your enemy. Nie Tian looked at Mu Jiuquan cold and said, otherwise I would not have saved Mu Xuan. Where is Yener? Mu Jiuquan's eyes flickered as he growled. Nie Tian's eyes flickered. He took Mu Xuan out from the 9 superbs. Yener. Mu Jiuquan's eyes trembled when he saw his daughter. He could not hold back the tears in his eyes. Nie Tian's face darkened. He did not say anything. He had his reasons for handing Mu Xuan over. Mu Jiuquan seemed to have misunderstood him. Handing Mu Xuan over would show his sincerity. It would be safer to hand Mu Xuan over to Mu Jiuquan. Mu Jiuquan would not harm his daughter no matter what. Yener, what happened to her? After a while, Mu Jiuquan calmed down. He asked nervously when he saw Mu Xuan was unconscious and that there was an evil energy surging in her body. Nie Tian frowned and turned to look at Jun Jianxing. The latter understood his intention and stepped forward, explaining Mu Xuan's situation in detail. Jun Jianxing was very honest. He told everything about him and Mu Xuan, including the fact that Mu Xuan was pregnant. Yi family, Yi Wuya. After hearing Jun Jianxing's words, Mu Jiuquan's eyes flickered like flames. The anger in his heart was like a volcano waiting to erupt. He had never expected that Yi Wuya would be so vicious to Mu Xuan. As a father, he almost married his daughter to the devil, Yi Wuya. At this moment, his heart was filled with extreme anger, hatred, and killing intent. Patriarch Mu, things have already come to this. Please calm down. Tian took a step forward and said in a deep voice. Jun Jianxing had lost control once before, and he did not want to see the same thing happen to Mu Jiuchuan. After all, Mu Jiuchuan was more experienced and steady. After a while, he calmed down a bit and said, I thought the Yi family only wanted to humiliate the Mu family and see some of our forces in Nine Changes City. I didn't expect that little bastard Yi Wuye to be so vicious. He had heard about the relationship between Mu Shuiyin and Jun Jianxing. He did not stop them, which was a tacit agreement. However, the Yi family was too aggressive, and the Mu family was not as powerful as before. Therefore, he had to sacrifice Mu Shuiyin in exchange for a temporary peace for the Mu family. However, he did not know that Mu Shuiyin was pregnant. Otherwise, he would never have agreed to the marriage between Mu Shuiyin and Yi Wuye. The aura of the heart-devouring curse had covered the aura of the baby in Mu Shuiyin's belly. Even Tian could not tell that Mu Shuiyin was pregnant. Patriarch Mu, you already know about Mu Shuiyin's situation. Now, I want to know why you want to kill me. Also, how did you sense the heaven-punishing demonic qi in my body? Tian's eyes narrowed slightly as he asked. You should remember that you once fought with a young martial artist from the Mu family. Mu Jiuchuan nodded slightly and said, He is my son, Mu Yinfeng. He was the one who told me that you have the aura of the heaven-punishing demonic qi in your body. Mu Yinfeng, knitting his brows, Tian immediately recalled that he fought with a young master of the Mu abode before the Jun Jianxing attempted to kidnap the bride. Although he did not kill the latter, he managed to break one of his arms. So that guy was Mu Jiuchuan's son. Fortunately, Tian did not kill him at that time. Otherwise, there would be a misunderstanding. How did he sense the heaven-punishing demonic qi in my body? Tian's eyes narrowed as he continued to ask. Because of this, Mu Jiuchuan's face suddenly turned gloomy as he stretched out his hand in front of Tian. Tian was shocked when he saw a black spot gradually appearing on Mu Jiuchuan's palm. The black spot slowly expanded and almost covered his entire palm. Furthermore, he could sense a strong aura of the heaven-punishing demonic qi on the black spot. What is this? Tian became cold as he asked in a deep voice. The heaven-punishing blood mark. Mu Jiuchuan's face darkened as he said, Every cultivator from a Mu family has this mark on them. It's the heaven-punishing blood mark that allowed Yunfeng to sense the heaven-punishing demonic qi in your body. So that's how it is. Tian's eyes sank as his face was filled with astonishment. The heaven-punishing blood mark contains a strong heaven-punishing demonic qi. Therefore, it is extremely sensitive to the heaven-punishing demonic qi. It can even sense a trace of the heaven-punishing demonic qi. Mu Jiuchuan's face darkened as his eyes were filled with suppressed anger. Where did this heaven-punishing blood mark come from? Tian frowned when he sensed the anger in Mu Jiuchuan's eyes and asked in a deep voice. It was left to the Mu family by that person. Mu Jiuchuan's eyes turned cold as his body trembled. That person? Tian went blank for a moment before an idea occurred to him. His expression flickered as he exclaimed, The Netherworld Emperor. So you do know about the Emperor of the Netherworld. Mu Jiuchuan's eyes widened when he heard the words Emperor of the Netherworld from Tian's mouth. A murderous look appeared on his face as he stared at Tian and asked, What is the relationship between you and the Emperor of the Netherworld? Why do you have the heaven-punishing demonic qi in your body? Tian's expression changed slightly when he sensed Mu Jiuchuan's murderous intent and said in a cold voice, Patriarch Mu, I do know the Emperor of the Netherworld, but he and I are enemies who have a deep hatred for each other. Really? Mu Jiuchuan's eyes were as cold as ice. It was obvious that he was doubtful of Tian's words. Chapter 3840. Mu Jiuchuan's eyes were cold and filled with murderous intent. His face was twisted and hideous, making him look extremely ferocious. Tian couldn't help but frown. He could sense a strange aura from Mu Jiuchuan. Mu Jiuchuan's change in attitude was extremely strange. He couldn't help but feel suspicious. Mu Jiuchuan had already calmed down. Why would his murderous intent be so strong all of a sudden. Nietian, it's the heaven-punishing blood seal that's affecting him. At this moment, Little Fat Cat's voice rang out in surprise. It's because of the heavenly blood seal. Nietian's eyes darkened as he came to a realization. He had already guessed that the heavenly blood seal might be affecting Mu Jiuquan's mind. Mu Jiuquan's murderous intent had grown stronger after he revealed the heavenly blood seal. Jun Jianxing became nervous as he sensed the murderous intent in the hall. He was also confused as to why Mu Jiuquan's attitude had changed once again. Patriarch Mu, please calm down. At that moment, Nietian suddenly let out a deep roar. A surge of eye bloodline power surged out and attacked Mu Jiuquan's divine sense. Mu Jiuquan's eyes trembled. His hideous expression froze for a moment before it slowly returned to normal. He calmed down with a strange and confused expression. He didn't know why he had suddenly become like that. It's nothing. Nietian let out a faint smile and said, Patriarch Mu, if you want to know why I'm asking about the Mu clan of Qin City, I can tell you. Nietian then briefly explained the matter of the Underworld Emperor and the reason why he had come to the Nine Changes City and the Realm of Illusions. Mu Jiuquan was still doubtful after hearing Nietian's explanation. His eyes trembled as he asked, Are you and the Underworld Emperor really enemies? Nietian nodded and didn't say anything else. He knew that it was pointless to say anything more. Mu Jiuquan wasn't a fool and naturally had his own judgment. So you're saying that you're here for the Three-Life Tribe? Mu Jiuquan calmed down and asked with a frown. Nietian nodded again and said, Patriarch Mu, please tell me if you know where the Three Lives clan's ancestral land is. You can ask for anything. As long as I can do it, I will definitely help you. Mu Jiuquan let out a long sigh. His eyes trembled slightly. After a long silence, he said, Nietian, the Mu clan of Qin City you're looking for is indeed us. Furthermore, the Mu clan and the Three Lives tribe do have some connections. However, that was a long time ago. The current Mu family is already in a precarious situation. No one knows where the Three Lives ancestral land is anymore. Nietian frowned, and his face immediately became somewhat gloomy. He could tell that Mu Jiuquan was hiding something. It was obvious that he did not want to tell him. Patriarch Mu, the Underworld Emperor, has returned. He is currently in the 5 Underworld Sacred World. After a while, Nietian frowned and said, I don't know how the Underworld Emperor treated the Mu clan in the past, but if he really returns to the Void Civ realm, I'm afraid it won't be a good thing for the Mu clan. Nietian, you don't have to remind me about this. I know what the Mu clan will face in the future. Mu Jiuquan naturally understood what Nietian meant. He said with a wry smile, the Mu clan has done a lot of wrong things in the past. They will have to pay for it eventually. Nietian frowned. He did not expect Mu Jiuquan to say that. Patriarch Mu, can you really not tell me the location of the Three Lives ancestral land? Nietian did not want to give up. He looked at Mu Jiuquan and asked, Nietian, I thank you for saving Shuiyan's life. However, I can't help you with the Three Lives ancestral land. Mu Jiuquan remained silent for a long time. In the end, he still refused to tell him the location of the Three Lives ancestral land. With a bitter smile, Nietian nodded and said, Since that's the case, I can't force you to do anything you don't want to do. He could tell that Mu Jiuquan knew the location of the Three Lives ancestral land. However, he could not force him if he was unwilling to tell him. Nietian, I'm sorry. Mu Jiuquan looked at Nietian and bowed slightly. He then said, If you don't have anything else to say, you can leave now. I will send someone to protect you and let you leave Nine Changes City safely. He did not help Nietian. Of course, he did not expect Nietian to help him save Mu Shuiyan. Patriarch Mu, Mu Shuiyan's condition is very bad. I can stay and help you. Nietian frowned. Even if Mu Jiuquan refused to help, he did not want to see anything bad happen to Mu Shuiyan. No need. Mu Jiuquan shook his head. It was obvious that he did not want to accept Nietian's help. Nietian frowned and wanted to say something. Patriarch. At that moment, an anxious voice came from outside the hall. A guard of the Mu family rushed in. He seemed to be in a panic. What happened? Mu Jiuchuan involuntarily frowned when he saw the panicked expression on the guard's face. He coldly chided in a low voice. Patriarch, something big happened. The guard was drenched in cold sweat. His eyes flickered with a strange light as he said in a trembling voice. Speak clearly, Mu Jiuchuan said in a cold voice. The guard's eyes flickered. He glanced at Nie Tian and Jun Jianxing. He then took a step forward and bowed slightly to Mu Jiuchuan. It was obvious that he had said something to Mu Jiuchuan. How is this possible? Mu Jiuchuan's expression changed. It was as if he had heard something terrible. His eyes trembled and his expression became blank for a few seconds. He then came to his senses and said in a low voice, "Take me there." "Yes, sir." The guard answered and left the hall with Mu Jiuchuan. Nie Tian and Jun Jianxing were stunned. They didn't know what had happened to make Mu Jiuchuan so anxious. Only Nie Tian and Jun Jianxing were left in the hall. The latter looked at Nie Tian and asked worriedly, "Mr. Nie, do you really want to leave?" It was obvious that he trusted Nie Tian and didn't want Nie Tian to leave. "Let's wait for Patriarch Mu to return." Nie Tian smiled faintly. He didn't answer the question directly. He wanted to stay and help, but if Mu Jiuchuan wanted him to leave, there was nothing he could do. Then, the two of them waited in the main hall. Half an hour later, Mu Jiuchuan appeared again. When Mu Jiuchuan returned to the main hall, his face was extremely gloomy and filled with deep worry. Looking at Mu Jiuchuan, Nie Tian stepped forward and asked, "What happened?" "High Chieftain Mu." "Nie Tian, come with me." Mu Jiuchuan didn't answer the question. He said in a low voice and walked out of the hall. Nie Tian frowned. He didn't know what had happened, but he still followed Mu Jiuchuan. Jun Jianxing also followed him. A moment later, Mu Jiuchuan brought Nie Tian and Jun Jianxing to a remote but elegant courtyard in the inner court of the Mu mansion. Mu Jiuchuan turned to look at Nie Tian and said, "Nie Tian, go in." Chapter 38:41. Nie Tian walked into the courtyard step by step. Because he wasn't confident, he took every step very carefully. This was a secluded courtyard that was very elegant. There were some medicinal herbs planted in the courtyard, and the air was filled with a refreshing fragrance. In the center of the courtyard was an old tree that was over 10 meters tall. Its shape was a little strange, and its aura was very unique. Nie Tian actually smelled the aura of a bloodline from the tree, and there was even a trace of the heaven-punishing demon Qi. He stared at the strange tree for a long time, but he didn't find anything strange. "Is anyone there?" After a while, he couldn't help but call out, "Little kid, your name is Nie Tian, right?" Right when his voice hadn't finished resounding through the air, a low and deep voice resounded from within the courtyard, and it revealed a strand of hoarseness. It seemed to be extremely aged, and it gave others a weak and decaying feeling. Nie Tian went blank for a moment before asking, "Who are you?" He didn't see anyone in the courtyard. The low voice seemed to come from the void, and it was very strange. "Don't be afraid. I'm right in front of you." The voice sounded again, and it seemed to be laughing, but it seemed even older. "Right in front of me?" Nie Tian's eyes darkened, and then he stared at the strange tree in front of him. His expression became more and more shocked, and finally, he was completely dumbfounded. He couldn't believe his eyes. On the trunk of the strange tree, there was a faint imprint of a human face. The face was very blurry, and if one didn't look carefully, they wouldn't be able to see it at all. But Nie Tian was very sure that it was a human face. "Little kid, don't be afraid. I'm in the tree in front of you." At this time, the voice sounded again, and it was very deep. "You're really in the tree." Nie Tian was stunned, but he finally calmed down, and his eyes were trembling. He was right. The person talking to him was in the tree in front of him. It was as if the person and the tree had fused together, and they had become one. "Little kid, my name is Muya, an ancestor of the Mu family." Then, the face in the tree spoke again. "Jiuchuan has already told me about you. I'm very sure that you're the one I'm waiting for." "Am I the person you're waiting for?" Nie Tian went blank for a moment, his face filled with astonishment. It turned out that the person in the tree was an ancestor of the Mu family, and his name was Muya. But why did Muya say that Niet Tian was the person he was waiting for? Little kid, aren't you looking for the Qin City's Mu clan? I was the patriarch of the Qin City's Mu clan all those years ago, and I was also the person who made a deal with the Netherworld Emperor all those years ago. Muya spoke in a deep voice, yet his voice revealed a strand of suppressed rage. You know the Emperor of the Underworld? Niet Tian was taken aback again, feeling quite surprised. Of course. Muya seemed to sneer as he said, that despicable bastard. He's the one who caused the tragedy of the Mu family. How can I forget him? The tragedy of the Mu family? Niet Tian was taken aback once again. Muya's words made him even more puzzled. Niet Tian, I don't have much time left. I can only briefly explain what happened back then. Muya said in a deep voice, before recounting what had happened between him and the Emperor of the Underworld. It turned out that the Emperor of the Underworld had cooperated with Muya in order to find the Three Life clan. Muya had helped him find the Three Life ancestral land, while the Emperor of the Underworld had left the heavenly punishing blood seal in Muya's body. Muya had originally thought that the heavenly punishing blood seal was a kind of power that could greatly increase his strength, and that he needed this power to take revenge. However, he later learned that the heavenly punishing blood seal was actually a kind of bloodline curse. The heavenly punishing blood seal could indeed increase his strength, but it also caused great harm to his martial body. As his strength grew, the damage the heavenly punishing blood seal inflicted on his martial body also increased. Even more terrifying was that the heavenly punishing blood seal had already fused with his bloodline power and was passed down to his descendants through his bloodline. Therefore, all the members of the Mu family after him had the heavenly punishing blood seal in their bodies. Furthermore, the stronger the bloodline power of the Mu family members, the stronger the heavenly punishing blood seal. The most vicious aspect of the heavenly punishing blood seal was that it would continuously devour the blood of a martialist, ultimately causing the martialist's blood to dry up and die. Therefore, most of the descendants of the Mu family had short lives. Many of them died after the heavenly punishing blood seal devoured their blood when they cultivated to the sage realm. Instead, the members of the Mu family with weaker bloodline power lived longer. In this way, the more talented the members of the Mu family died earlier, while the weaker ones survived. As time passed, the Mu family's strength grew weaker and weaker. Now, the Mu family had completely become a small, unknown family clan in the Void Luo realm. They could only struggle at death's door in a third-rate city like Nine Changes City. What a vicious emperor of the underworld! Niet Tian's eyes trembled slightly after hearing Muya's words, and his expression was incomparably gloomy. The Emperor of the Underworld treated those who had once helped him in such a manner. The viciousness of his heart was evident. The Mu family was indeed pitiful enough. Such a vicious blood seal in their bloodline power was practically like a curse for generations. Come to think of it, the Mu family must have been very powerful back then. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for them to still exist as a force. At this moment, Niet Tian's eyes narrowed slightly, and he couldn't help but ask curiously, "Senior, is it because of this tree that you're able to live for so long? Since Muya was someone from the same era as the Emperor of the Underworld, he should be several million years old, or even tens of millions of years old." Niet Tian wasn't sure what era the Emperor of the Underworld was from. In any case, this fellow had slumbered for who knew how long in the realm alone. The fact that Muya was able to live until now with the heavenly punishing blood seal in his body should have something to do with his current form. Yes, Muya replied solemnly. It was already too late when I sensed the backlash of the heavenly punishing blood seal. However, I didn't want to die. I wanted revenge. Therefore, I used a special method to merge my body with the dragon mulberry tree, and that's how I've survived until now. So that's how it is. The corners of Niet Tian's mouth twitched, and his heart trembled. For a person to merge his body with a tree for the sake of revenge, this was no different from imprisoning himself. Moreover, this imprisonment had lasted for millions of years. The pain that Muya had endured during such a long and lonely time was unimaginable. From this, It could be seen just how deep his hatred for the Emperor of the Underworld was. Senior, you said that the person you're waiting for is me. What do you mean by that? Tian became cold and continued to ask. Chapter 3842. Tian's gaze sharpened when he saw the glint in Muya's eyes. His heart shuddered. He could clearly sense the desire for revenge in Muya's eyes. Muya's hatred had accumulated to an unimaginable level after being oppressed for millions of years. No one knew how much he wanted to take revenge on the Onyx Emperor. Senior, do you think I can avenge the Mu clan? Tian asked with a frown. Yes, Muya replied. Muya replied heavily. I've already been in slumber for hundreds of thousands of years. Your appearance awakened my heaven-punishing blood seal and awakened me. Long Sang-Huai has suffered too much backlash. He can't hold on any longer. Now that I've awakened, the power of the heaven-punishing blood seal has increased once again. My great limit is approaching. This, Tian was stunned. He couldn't react for a long time. It turned out that his appearance had awakened Muya. Mu Jiuquan must have been shocked when he heard that Muya had awakened. Tian, if you want to know where the ancestral land of 3 lives is, you must promise me that you will kill the Onyx Emperor and avenge the Mu clan. Muya's voice sounded out once more. His voice was filled with an eerie, murderous intent. Eyebrows furrowed, Tian nodded. Sure, he and the Onyx Emperor had always been enemies. He and the Onyx Emperor would have a battle to the death sooner or later. Very well. Muya smiled and said, Jiuquan knows where the ancestral land of 3 lives is. He will tell you. Yes. Tian nodded and smiled bitterly in his heart. It seemed that Muya didn't fully trust him. Muya had said that Tian was the person he was waiting for, but it was likely that he had no other choice, since his death was coming to an end. Tian, let Jiuquan in, Muya ordered Tian. With these words, Tian led Mu Jiuquan into the courtyard. Ancestor. Mu Jiuquan bowed deeply toward Muya, his face filled with grief. He already knew that Muya's time was near. Jiuquan, I don't have much time left. Before I die, I must leave my bloodline power to a disciple of the Mu clan. Do you have a suitable candidate in mind? Muya did not waste any time and directly spoke. This. Mu Jiuquan's expression faltered. He was at a loss for words. Do you or not? Just say it. Muya said in a deep voice, his voice filled with a dignified tone. Mu Jiuquan shook his head and said with a helpless expression, Ancestor, very few of the Mu family's disciples have reached the 2nd cycle of bloodline power, and even fewer have reached the 3rd cycle. There is simply no one who can inherit your bloodline. All 3 rounds of bloodline are gone. Muya smiled strangely, as if mocking himself. So it turns out that my Mu family has already fallen to such a state. The heaven-punishing blood seal is too terrifying, Mu Jiuquan sighed, his eyes filled with despair. Since there's no one, then forget it. Muya's withered eyes flickered for a moment before he said, To think that I'm Muya, with my tyrannical bloodline, I'm going to die like this. What a joke of the heavens. Tian could not help but feel puzzled as he listened to the conversation between Mu Jiuquan and Muya. He had never heard that bloodline power could be inherited. Bloodline power was something that was obtained naturally through the bloodline. How could it possibly be inherited? At that moment, Mu Jiuquan suddenly thought of something and said with a pale expression, Ancestor, there might be someone who can inherit your bloodline. Who is it? Let him come. Muya exclaimed in joy and immediately responded. But Mu Jiuquan's expression stiffened as he said hesitantly, But he's too young. I'm afraid his body won't be able to endure it. Bring him here first, Muya said in a deep and cold voice. Yes, Mu Jiuquan responded. Then he cast a strange glance at Tian before leaving the courtyard in a hurry. Tian frowned as he began to feel puzzled. He did not know who Mu Jiuquan was referring to. A moment later, Mu Jiuquan returned with a tiny figure following behind him. Big brother Tian. The tiny figure exclaimed in pleasant surprise when he saw Tian. I knew you would come back to save us. Mu-chan. Tian turned around and exclaimed in shock when he saw the tiny figure. He had never thought that the person Mu Jiuchuan was referring to who could inherit Mu Ye's bloodline was Mu Chun. How old was Mu Chun? Was he 9 or 10 years old? He had just awakened his origin spirit not long ago. How could he inherit the bloodline of a martial practitioner who had lived for tens of millions of years with his current strength? Mu Jiuchuan must be joking. This child's bloodline power is... However, Mu Ye's withered eyes flickered with excitement when he saw Mu Chun. He exclaimed in shock, 9 wheels. 9 wheels? Mu Jiuchuan's eyes widened when he heard Mu Ye's words. He had sensed that Mu Chen's bloodline power was extremely powerful when he first saw him. However, he did not expect Mu Chen's bloodline power to have reached 9 wheels. Big brother Nye Tian, what are the patriarchs talking about? Who's that person on that strange tree? Mu Chen walked to Nye Tian's side. He wasn't afraid of Mu Ye at all. Instead, he pulled Nye Tian aside and asked. Nye Tian frowned, but didn't say anything. He had suspected that Mu Chun was from the same clan as the Mu clan of Nine Changes City. It seemed like he was right. Patriarch Mu, what do you mean by 9 wheels bloodline? Nye Tian took a step forward and asked Mu Jiuchuan. Nye Tian, Mu Chun is actually a member of the Mu clan. His father was expelled from Nine Changes City because he broke the clan's rules. Mu Jiuchuan calmed himself and said, the Mu clan's bloodline power is one of the 9 great primordial bloodlines, the reincarnation bloodline. One of the 9 great primordial bloodlines. Nye Tian's eyes narrowed slightly as he was shocked. It turned out that the Mu clan's bloodline was this powerful. It was one of the 9 great primordial bloodlines. In the past, Nye Tian had seen a few primordial bloodlines, such as the 8 abnormalities bloodline, the Chun Wolf bloodline, and the Soul Severing bloodline. Now, there was another reincarnation bloodline. Mu Jiuchuan nodded and said, the reincarnation bloodline is extremely powerful. Every member of the Mu clan will have a reincarnation bloodline. The reincarnation bloodline goes from weak to strong, from 1 to 9 wheels. Normally, 3 to 6 wheels reincarnation bloodlines are relatively common. However, due to the heavenly punishing blood seal, there are very few people in the Mu clan who possess 3 or more wheels reincarnation bloodlines. However, Mu Chen's reincarnation bloodline is the most powerful reincarnation bloodline, the 9 wheels reincarnation bloodline. Mu Jiuchuan couldn't help but look at Mu Chun. His eyes were trembling with excitement. He couldn't imagine that someone would possess the 9 wheels reincarnation bloodline when the Mu clan's bloodline power had declined to such an extent. Mu Chun was simply a miracle. So you want him to inherit senior Mu Ye's bloodline because his bloodline is powerful? Nye Tian's expression sank as he asked in a cold tone. The truth was that he had sensed something strange from Mu Chen's body, but he didn't pay much attention to it at the time. From the looks of it, it was very likely that he had sensed the power of Mu Chen's bloodline. Chapter 3843. Mu Jiuchuan looked at Mu Chun with a grim expression, as if he were thinking about something. Mu Chen's bloodline power had reached the astonishing 9-wheel gates. This was something he never expected. However, Mu Chen was still a 9-year-old child after all. Not to mention that his martial body was not strong enough. Even his body was far from mature. Under such circumstances, Mu Chun was unable to bear the bloodline of his ancestor, Mu Ye. Mu Ye was similarly silent, clearly very disappointed. If Mu Chun was already an adult, he would definitely take the risk. But now, if he were to forcefully let Mu Chun inherit the bloodline, the latter would definitely explode and die. Patriarch Mu, what do you mean by inheriting the bloodline? Nye Tian frowned and could not help but ask. The reincarnation bloodline of the Mu family is different from ordinary bloodlines. Mu Jiuchuan saw through Nye Tian's confusion. He nodded slightly and said, the reincarnation bloodline is one of the 9 primordial bloodlines. Not only can it be passed down from generation to generation, but there's also a way to accumulate bloodline power. From there, you can obtain an even stronger bloodline power. For example, if a Mu family martial artist only has 3-wheel gates, if he inherits the bloodline of a Mu family martial artist with 4-wheel gates, his bloodline power will at least reach 4-wheel gates, and may even reach no-wheel gates. Mu Jiuchuan glanced at Mu Chun and said, Mu Chen's bloodline power has already reached the 9 reincarnation gate, and the ancestor's bloodline is also at the 9 reincarnation gate. If he can inherit the ancestor's bloodline, his bloodline power will definitely improve. It was even possible for him to break through the 9th wheel and reach the legendary realm. The middle 10 rounds. With that said, Mu Jiuchuan's eyes trembled as an indescribable sense of excitement and fervor appeared on his face. 10-wheel gates. This was a bloodline power that only existed in legends. Previously, when he had introduced the reincarnation bloodline, he had only mentioned the 1st to 9th wheel. He had not mentioned the 10th wheel. That was because in the history of the Mu clan, no one had ever reached the 10th wheel. Even Mu Ye, the ancestor of the Mu family, was only at the 9-wheel gate. However, both Mu Jiuchuan and Mu Ye knew that 10 reincarnation gates did exist. It was just that the bloodline power of the Mu clan's descendants wasn't strong enough to break through the 9 reincarnation gates. However, Mu Chun actually possessed the 9-wheel gate bloodline when the Mu clan's bloodline had declined to such an extent. One could imagine how talented he was. With Mu Chen's bloodline and Mu Ye's bloodline, it was extremely possible for him to break through the legendary 10-wheel gate. Nie Tian's eyes flickered slightly upon hearing Mu Jiuchuan's words. Astonishment filled his heart. Bloodline accumulation? It wasn't hard to understand, but he had never seen or heard. Mu clan's bloodline power. Actually, the reincarnation bloodline was similar to Little Fat Cat's memory inheritance, using a special method to pass on the power of the bloodline. What a pity, what a pity. My time is almost up. At this moment, Mu Ye let out a long sigh and lamented, If only I could hold on for a few more years and wait for this child to grow up a little, the Mu clan would have a super genius with the 10-wheel gate. As Mu was Mu, Ye sighed, who felt as Chun felt. Nie Tian frowned and his face darkened. At that moment, Mu Jiuchuan sighed. Alas, if he is unable to inherit the ancestor's bloodline, then with the power of Mu Chen's bloodline, I'm afraid. A helpless expression appeared on his face as he glanced at Mu Chun. What do you mean? Nie Tian frowned and asked with a serious expression. You already know that the heavenly punishing blood seal of the Mu clan is fused with their bloodline. Mu Jiuchuan glanced at Nie Tian and said, Furthermore, the stronger the bloodline power, the stronger the heaven-punishing blood seal. Mu Chen's bloodline power is the 9 revolving gates. I'm afraid his heaven-punishing blood seal has already awakened. Nie Tian frowned, and his expression became even gloomier. Generally speaking, the backlash of the heaven-punishing blood seal will only slowly reveal itself after one reaches adulthood. Mu Jiuchuan let out a sigh and continued. However, Mu Chen's bloodline power is simply too strong. I'm afraid that the heaven-punishing blood seal in his body has already awakened and begun to devour his blood qi. According to this, he won't live for more than a few years. This, Nie Tian frowned and wore a shocked expression. He clearly did not expect Mu Chen's condition to be this serious. 1 month, Mu Ye suddenly said as soon as Mu Jiuchuan finished his words. 1 month. Nie Tian and Mu Jiuchuan exclaimed in shock. Mu Ye replied, If this child is unable to inherit my bloodline, he has at most 1 month left. Nie Tian's eyes widened as his expression stiffened. Mu Chen's condition was a lot more serious than Mu Jiuchuan had mentioned. A 9-year-old child only had a month left to live. This greatly shocked Nie Tian. Progenitor, is this child's bloodline power really that strong? Mu Jiuchuan's eyes trembled as he said in a deep voice, His bloodline power is even scarier than mine back then. Mu Ye said in a heavy tone. His voice was filled with astonishment as he let out a sigh. Such a pity that the heavens did not protect our Mu clan. Brother Nie Tian, what are you guys talking about? At this moment, Mu Chun seemed to have realized something. He raised his head and looked at Nie Tian. His eyes shone with a clear light like black gemstones. Nie Tian wore a dull expression, not knowing what to say. Senior Mu Ye, is the reason why Mu Chun is unable to inherit your bloodline because his martial physique is too weak? After a short moment, Nietion's gaze suddenly shook and flickered with a wisp of a sharp light as he asked Muya. Muya's aged eyes sank slightly as he said, "He's still a child. His martial physique is still unstable. If he were to suddenly receive a powerful bloodline power, his martial physique might not be able to withstand it and explode. If Mu Chun was already an adult, we might have a chance, but now." Mu Jiuchuan let out a sigh as soon as he finished his sentence. For the past 10 million years, the Mu clan had finally produced a peerless genius, but he was about to die before he could even reach adulthood. How could he not feel heartache? Nietion wore a dull expression as his eyes flickered slightly. What if I can improve Mu Chen's martial physique? After a prolonged silence, Nietion's eyes suddenly flickered as he said in a deep voice, "What did you say?" Muya and Mu Jiuchuan exclaimed in excitement after hearing Nietion's words. Chapter 38:44. Fat Cat could guess what Nietion was thinking. He couldn't help but let out a cry of surprise. His cat-like face froze in fear. Really? Mu Jiuchuan and Muya were very excited as they exclaimed in unison. At this moment, Muya's bark-covered eyes were actually filled with vitality, showing just how excited he was. "MHM," Nietion nodded. His eyes were filled with determination. "Nietion, are you really going to use a forbidden astral soul?" Fat Cat's voice rang out again. At this moment, Nietion only had a black tortoise astral soul. Previously, he had given the earth-extinguishing astral soul to Jun Jinxing. Now he was going to give the black tortoise astral soul to Mu Chun. How could Fat Cat not panic? Every forbidden astral soul represented a celestial monarch. Not to mention the fact that Nietion had chosen the earth-extinguishing astral soul and the black tortoise astral soul in a hurry. Just the loss of the black tortoise astral soul and the earth-extinguishing astral soul would be a huge blow to his strength. The earth-extinguishing astral soul and the black tortoise astral soul were Nietion's strongest trump cards. Just like when he fought against the old man from the Yi clan, if he didn't have the earth-extinguishing astral soul, he wouldn't have been able to defeat the old man with a single palm strike. If he lost the earth-extinguishing astral soul and the black tortoise astral soul, his strength would be greatly reduced. Nietion frowned and said in a deep voice, "Little fatty, don't tell me that I'm going to watch a 9-year-old child die like this." This? Fat Cat was stunned. He was stunned and couldn't speak for a moment. He didn't expect Nietion to say this. "I know I'm not a savior. There are too many people in this world who are suffering. I can't save them." Nietion frowned and said, "But Mu Chun, since I met him, how can I not save him? He's still a child. Can you guarantee that when he grows up, he will be the celestial monarch you want?" Fat Cat's eyes darkened, and he said directly, "I just saved him. I don't want anything in return." Nietion's eyes flickered as he said, "I don't expect him to be of much help to me after he grows up. As long as he can be a good person, that's enough." This. The Fat Cat was stunned once more, unable to say a word. Although Nietion had experienced countless life and death situations, he had already developed a decisive personality. But in the face of some things, he would still show his soft side. Perhaps this was his original intention. It wasn't easy for Nietion to still maintain his martial Dao heart after walking so far. "Nietion, how are you going to help him improve his martial body?" Mu Jiuchuan asked impatiently. "Patriarch Mu, don't worry about this. I can guarantee that after I help Mu Chun upgrade his martial physique, he will definitely be able to inherit the bloodline of Senior Muya." Nietion lightly smiled, but didn't elaborate on the matter regarding the forbidden astral soul. Mu Jiuchuan could tell that Nietion didn't want to talk about it, so he stopped asking. Now that the situation was like this, it was almost the worst-case scenario. Since Nietion had a solution, it was worth a try. "Senior Muya, how much longer do you think you can hold on?" Nietion nodded slightly as he looked at Muya. At this stage, there was no need for him to worry too much. "I'm afraid that today will be my last day," Muya replied in a heavy voice. There was no fear in his voice, only reluctance and sorrow. "Ancestor." Mu Jiuchuan's eyes trembled. He didn't expect Muya's situation to reach this stage. "All right, I'll help Mu-chan upgrade his martial physique now. Nye Tion's gaze sank slightly as he took a deep breath. He didn't expect that Muya would only have a day left. He had originally planned to deal with Mu Shuiyan's matter before dealing with Mu-chan. But now, it seemed like Mu-chan had to take priority. Without any hesitation, Nye Tion decided to help Mu-chan merge the Black Tortoise constellation on the spot. Mu-chan, what kind of person do you want to be in the future? Before releasing the Black Tortoise constellation, Nye Tion's eyes flickered as he looked at Mu-chan and asked in a deep voice. I want to be like Big Brother Nye Tion, protecting the good and killing the bad. Mu-chan's eyes were crystal clear as he spoke with a firm voice. Protecting the good and killing the bad. Hearing Mu-chan's words, Nye Tion couldn't help but chuckle. His gaze turned cold as he stared at Mu-chan and said, Mu-chan, I hope that you will always remember these words. Remember, these are the words that you said yourself? Yes. Mu-chan nodded his head with a firm expression on his face. Although he had no idea what Nye Tion was going to do to him, he had 100% trust in Nye Tion. All right, Nye Tion smiled and said, Now, I want you to sit down and enter the state of cultivation. No matter what happens, you must hold on, all right? Yes. Mu-chan nodded his head with a firm expression. He sat down cross-legged and closed his eyes as he prepared himself. Nye Tion took a deep breath, and with a thought, a blazing white vortex appeared in his palm. In an instant, the entire courtyard was filled with a strong astral aura. This is... Mu Jiuchuan's eyes flickered. He didn't expect Nye Tion to take out something so terrifying. He could sense an incomparably terrifying power from the blazing white vortex. This power actually made him, a ninth heavenly righteousness great sage, feel fear. What powerful strength! Muya also exclaimed, feeling quite shocked in his heart. They didn't expect Nye Tion to have something so terrifying on him. Nye Tion ignored Mu Jiuchuan and Muya. He took a deep breath and started to fuse the Black Tortoise astral soul for Mu-chan. He was already very familiar with fusing forbidden astral souls. However, it was his first time fusing one for a little kid like Mu-chan. Therefore, he was extremely careful with every step he took, not daring to be careless. The Black Tortoise astral soul engulfed Mu-chan, causing him to emit a pure and holy aura. A moment later, the energy from the astral soul turned into astral runes and started to fuse with Mu-chan's body. Mu-chan was still a kid after all. His martial physique was still weak, so the impact of the astral runes was too great. However, he clenched his teeth and did not make a sound. It wasn't easy for someone his age to have such a strong mental fortitude. Half a day later, Nye Tion finally fused the Black Tortoise astral soul into Mu-chan's body. Nye Tion let out a long breath. Bean-sized beads of sweat had already appeared on his forehead, and his tensed nerves instantly relaxed. Nye Tion, are you all right? Mu Jiuchuan immediately asked when he saw the fatigue on Nye Tion's face. Chapter 38:45. Big Brother Nye Tion, I'm already a giant spirit realm cultivator. After standing up, Mu-chan's eyes were filled with surprise and excitement. He looked at Nye Tion and shouted excitedly, his eyes trembling with excitement. After merging with the Black Tortoise Star Soul, Mu-chan had leaped from an origin spirit realm cultivator to a giant spirit realm cultivator. His strength had risen by 2 major realms, directly skipping the manifestation realm. Nye Tion nodded with a faint smile, a gratified expression on his face. He was very satisfied with Mu-chan's increase in strength. The Black Tortoise Star Soul was extremely powerful. If it was truly released, Mu-chan wouldn't just rise by 2 major realms. After all, Mu-chan was still young and only at the initial stages of the martial path. The majority of the Black Tortoise Star Soul's power was temporarily suppressed by Nye Tion. It would slowly be released as Mu-chan's strength increased in the future. Mu-chan's current giant spirit realm cultivation should be enough for him to inherit Mu-ya's bloodline. Little fellow, you've really hit the jackpot this time. Mu Jiuchuan couldn't help but rub Mu-chan's little head as he laughed heartily. How could he not know that the power Nye Tian had helped Mu Chen merge with was no ordinary thing? He could even sense that the power contained within the blazing white whirlpool was even more terrifying than Mu Ye's bloodline. Mu Chen was originally a person on the brink of death. Now that he had suddenly obtained such great power and was about to inherit Mu Ye's bloodline, what else could it be other than great luck? Senior Mu Ye, can Mu Chen inherit your bloodline now? Nye Tian nodded slightly as he looked at Mu Ye. Yes. Mu Ye was also very excited as he laughed heartily. Nye Tian, I really didn't expect you to be so heaven-defying. Nye Tian nodded and didn't say anything else. Mu Ye had actually inherited Mu Chen's bloodline at the time of his death, so Nye Tian didn't want to rush him. Since that's the case, let's begin. Mu Ye laughed heartily. He didn't feel the slightest bit of sorrow in the face of death. Instead, he was extremely carefree. Forefather, Mu Jiuquan's face darkened as tears welled up in his eyes. You're the head of a family. What's the point of crying? However, Mu Ye said in a low voice, I'm already a rotten tree. If I can make some contributions to the Mu family before I die, I can die without regrets. Ha ha, little fellow, come on. After saying that, Mu Ye laughed loudly. Instantly, the long Sang-Huai tree began to sway, like a sinister devil. It waved its branches, and like a huge tentacle, it directly grabbed towards Mu Chen. You weirdo, what are you trying to do? Mu Chen was frightened by the sudden scene and shouted. However, he had already been grabbed by Long Sang-Huai. His entire body was wrapped up by branches, and he disappeared in an instant. Nye Tian could not help but let out a bitter laugh when he saw this scene. This Mu Ye, he was about to die, but he still didn't forget to scare a child. Nye Tian did not say anything. He only stared straight at Long Sang-Huai with a hint of solemnity in his eyes. Little fellow, don't be afraid. I is about to begin. Get ready to inherit the bloodline. At that moment, Mu Ye's voice echoed in the courtyard once again. In the next moment, a strange change occurred to the dragon mulberry scholar tree. A strange power surged through the tree trunks. The power of the bloodline. Nye Tian's eyes narrowed slightly as his expression changed. He could sense a powerful bloodline power from the long Sang-Huai tree. Following this, streams of bloodline power began to gather and slowly flow into Mu Chen's body. Mu Chen's expression was painful, but he clenched his teeth and did not make a single sound. The bloodline inheritance has begun. Mu Jiuquan's eyes trembled as he stared at Long Sang-Huai tree. Nye Tian's eyes narrowed as his nerves tensed up once again, afraid that something unexpected would happen. Following this, everything proceeded smoothly. A few hours later, the aura of the bloodline power from the branches of the Long Sang-Huai tree began to weaken. Following this, the branches began to rot and wither as they gradually lost their vitality. Ancestor, Mu Jiuquan knew that Mu Ye was about to leave. His eyes trembled as 2 streams of hot tears rolled down his cheeks. Mu Jiuquan, listen carefully. The people of the Mu clan will bleed, but not shed tears. Meanwhile, Mu Ye's voice was heard once again as he said in a deep voice, the people of the Mu clan can die standing, but they will never live kneeling. Mu Jiuquan's eyes flickered when he heard Mu Ye's words. Die standing and live kneeling. Mu Ye's words seemed to be reminding him that the people of the Mu clan must live with dignity. Jiuquan will remember the ancestors' teachings. Mu Jiuquan uttered as if he had just come to a realization. However, there was no response from the rift. The Long Sang-Huai tree rapidly decayed and turned into dust. The ancestor of the Mu clan, Mu Ye, had left forever. Mu Chen. At that moment, Mu Chen's figure appeared and floated in the air. Nye Tian took a step forward and was about to catch him. Nye Tian, be careful. But at this moment, little fat cat's voice suddenly rang out, and it cried out in alarm. Nye Tian's expression flickered with astonishment. Not good. At almost the same time, Mu Jiuquan also sensed that something was amiss. His eyes widened as he exclaimed in shock. He could sense that there was an extremely powerful bloodline power in Mu Chen's body that was rapidly growing. It was like a wild beast that wanted to tear his body apart. This is In the next moment, Mu Jiuchuan's expression changed drastically as he blurted out in a trembling voice, "The Ten-Wheel Gate." The Ten-Wheel Gate, the legendary bloodline of the Mu clan, had really appeared. Mu Jiuchuan had a feeling that Mu Chun had a high chance of obtaining the legendary Ten-Wheel Gate bloodline before inheriting Mu Ye's bloodline. However, when the Ten-Wheel Gate appeared, Mu Jiuchuan was still extremely shocked. "Lord Ancestor, the Ten-Wheel Gate has really appeared in the Mu clan. Do you see it?" Mu Jiuchuan's eyes were trembling as he yelled at the sky as if he had gone mad. As a member of the Mu clan, he was well aware of how terrifying the Ten-Wheel Gate was. He knew what it meant to possess such a powerful bloodline. Something's wrong with this aura. However, at that moment, Niet Tian frowned as his eyes trembled. His face was filled with fear and unease. Mu Chen's body is unstable. Mu Jiuchuan's eyes burned as he stared at Mu Chun. His eyes widened as he exclaimed in shock. Bang! Just as he finished speaking, Mu Chen's body suddenly shook in the void and then directly exploded. Chapter 3846. The sudden and bloody scene stunned Mu Jiuchuan. He was petrified like a wooden statue. Niet Tian's pupils constricted. His face froze, and he could not react for a long time. He had already helped Mu Chun merge with the Black Tortoise astral soul and raise Mu Chen's strength to the giant spirit realm. However, Mu Chun still could not endure the impact of Mu Ye's bloodline. The place was deathly silent. The smell of blood permeated the courtyard. Impossible. This is impossible. This is absolutely impossible. After a long time, Mu Jiuchuan's hysterical cries rang out in the courtyard. He seemed to have gone mad, grabbing everywhere as if he wanted to grab Mu Chun back. The Mu clan's ancestor had already fallen. They had finally managed to raise a peerless genius of the Ten-Wheel Gate. However, he had disappeared like a flash. How could Mu Jiuchuan bear such a heavy blow? Clan head Mu, calm down. Niet Tian frowned when he saw that Mu Jiuchuan's emotions were not right. He stepped forward and shouted, "He is not dead. He will come back to life." Mu Jiuchuan had the heaven-punishing blood seal in his body. Once his emotions reached a certain limit, he would lose control. Niet Tian did not want to face a 9th-level heavenly righteousness great sage cultivator who lost control. Xiao Chun directly released his I Chi and forcefully attacked Mu Jiuchuan's spiritual sense, allowing Mu Jiuchuan to calm down. Mu Jiuchuan's eyes trembled, and his expression turned sluggish. However, he finally calmed down, no longer as deranged as before. "Clan head Mu, believe me, Mu Chun is not dead. He will come back to life," Niet Tian said after taking a deep breath. "Come back to life?" Mu Jiuchuan calmed down. His eyes trembled as he laughed in despair. "His body is gone. How can he come back to life?" Mu Jiuchuan even worried that Niet Tian was hallucinating. Even a great firmament golden immortal would not be able to bring Mu Chun back to life. "Let's wait here. I'm sure he'll come back to life," Niet Tian said with a faint smile. His eyes were filled with extreme determination. He had successfully merged the Black Tortoise astral soul into Mu Chun's body. Mu Chun was now a star venerate. Xiao Chun believed that Mu Chun would definitely be like the other star venerates, with an inextinguishable star soul and a martial body. However, up until now, Niet Tian had not personally seen a star venerate reincarnate. Hence, he did not know how Mu Chun would reincarnate. Mu Jiuchuan frowned when he saw the serious expression on Niet Tian's face. Boom! At this moment, the void suddenly trembled strangely, and a star rune appeared. That kind of power? Mu Jiuchuan's eyes flickered, and a strange expression appeared on his face. He recognized that the star pattern was the power within the blazing white vortex that Niet Tian had just taken out. "It has begun." Niet Tian's eyes trembled as he exclaimed in surprise. The rebirth of a star venerate had begun. Following that, more and more star marks appeared in the sky. They were like falling stars, shining brightly in the sky, causing the entire courtyard to sparkle, as if a galaxy had fallen. After a while, these star marks began to slowly converge, gradually forming a blazing white vortex. It was the black tortoise astral soul. The black tortoise has appeared. Nyetian exclaimed in surprise when he saw this scene. Big brother Nyetian, what's wrong with me? In the next moment, a tender voice rang out from the black tortoise astral soul. It was none other than Mu-chun. Mu-chun. This strange scene caused Mu Jiuchuan's eyes to tremble. He did not dare to believe his ears. Mu-chun, it's fine. You will return to normal very soon. Nyetian smiled faintly. He had already sensed Mu-chen's aura from the black tortoise astral soul. Since the black tortoise astral soul had already been condensed, Mu-chen's rebirth would not take long. Mu-chen replied, and the black tortoise astral soul calmed down. Nyetian stared at the black tortoise astral soul for a long time, but there was no movement from it. He could not help but frown and mumble. It seems like Mu-chen's rebirth will take some time. He pondered for a moment. He could not afford to wait here. Hence, he directly stored the black tortoise astral soul into the 9 extremities. Nyetian, what's going on? Mu Jiuchuan finally calmed down. His eyes trembled as he stared at Nyetian. Patriarch Mu, don't worry. Mu-chun will definitely come back to life. Nyetian smiled faintly, but he did not explain anything. Mu Jiuchuan was astonished. He knew that Nyetian did not wish to explain further. Hence, he did not probe further. Only now did he realize how terrifying the blazing white vortex Nyetian had taken out was. It could actually bring the dead back to life. How terrifying! Nyetian, when will Mu-chun return to normal? Mu Jiuchuan asked worriedly. Maybe a few days, or maybe tens of days. I can't say for sure. Nyetian smiled faintly. This? Mu Jiuchuan frowned. He did not know what to say. Nyetian took a deep breath, calmed himself down, and said in a serious tone, Patriarch Mu, let's leave Mu-chen's matter for now. I need to tell you about Mu Shuiyan's situation. Mu-chen was basically fine. He just needed time to recover. Right now, the most troublesome situation was Mu Shuiyan. Yeah, well, he's safe for now, right? Mu Jiuchuan looked at Nyetian and asked with a gloomy expression. Mu Shuiyan is safe for now, but the child in her womb is not. Nyetian said with a gloomy expression. What do you mean? Mu Jiuchuan's expression darkened. Nyetian took a deep breath. He did not say it directly. Instead, he called Jun Jinxing over. Jun Jinxing had been waiting outside the courtyard. As soon as he entered the courtyard, he frowned when he sensed the scent of blood in the air. Nyetian did not explain anything. Instead, he told them the condition of Mu Shuiyan's child. Yeah, that bastard. Mu Jiuchuan and Jun Jinxing roared furiously after hearing what Nyetian had to say. Nyetian had long since known that the two of them would be very excited to hear the news. After all, they were the child's blood relatives. One was the father, while the other was the maternal grandfather. You two, you must calm down. Nyetian glanced at Mu Jiuchuan and Jun Jinxing and said in a deep voice, Mu Shuiyan's child only has 1 day left. If we cannot remove the heart-devouring curse seal in her body, the child will die. Then what are we waiting for? Let's go to the Yi family and ask for the child. Mu Jiuchuan's face was so gloomy that it looked like it was about to drip blood. Chapter 38:47. He would rather die standing than live kneeling. Mu Jiuchuan finally understood Mu Ye's dying words. He had asked Mu Shuiyan to marry Yi Wuye in exchange for a temporary peace between the Mu family and the Yi family. Wasn't that equivalent to kneeling and living? But now he would not give in. He made the Yi clan understand that the Mu clan could not be humiliated. Patriarch Mu, I understand how you feel right now. However, Nyetian's expression was gloomy as he said, but you have to understand that the Mu family strength is no match for the Yi family's. If we really go to the Yi family directly, we'll be digging our own graves. In the end, not only will we not be able to save Mu Shuiyan and the child, but there's also a possibility that the Mu family will die. Even the entire Mu family is at stake. Mu Jiuchuan looked at Nyetian and said with a grim face, So what do you think we should do? The Yi clan is very powerful, but that's only in 9 Changes City. If we can invite someone that the Yi clan fears to take charge, things will be much easier. Nyetian furrowed his brows and said, We don't need that big shot to take action. We just need him to promise to give us a fair and just opportunity. Fair and just? Mu Jiuquan was taken aback, not understanding what Nie Tian meant. Leader Mu, the matters between Mu Shuyin and Yi Wuye, as well as Jun Jinxing, are just matters between the younger generation. There's no need to escalate into a war between the two families. Nie Tian smiled faintly and said, I believe that with Jun Jinxing's strength, he is definitely not afraid of Yi Wuye. I understand. Upon hearing what Nie Tian had said, Jun Jinxing's eyes trembled slightly. He said, Mr. Nie, you want me to have a fair fight with Yi Wuye to end all this? Yes. Nie Tian nodded, the corners of his mouth twitching coldly. If Jun Jinxing had the chance to have a fair fight with Yi Wuye would probably end up in a miserable state. But I don't know any big shots, Mu Jiuquan said with a helpless expression. Brother Jun, what about the St. Luo school that you mentioned? Nie Tian frowned and asked Jun Jinxing. Although he didn't know what level the Holy Rock Institute was, he guessed that it should be much stronger than forces like the Yi family and the Mu family. In Holy Rock Institute, I only know the teacher, but he can't represent the institute, so he doesn't have much of a deterrent effect on the Yi family. Jun Jinxing frowned and looked helpless. Yi Wuye obtained the Holy Knight Chalcedony. Don't tell me that the people from Holy Rock Institute aren't going to pursue this matter? Nie Tian's gaze froze as he asked curiously. Yi Wuye had personally admitted that he had used the Holy Knight Chalcedony to improve his physique and increase his strength. It was impossible for the people of Holy Rock Academy to be completely unaware of this. Mr. Nie, there's something you don't know. One of the patriarchs of the Yi family is the vice dean of the St. Rock Institute. Do you think anyone will pursue Yi Wuye? Jun Jinxing smiled bitterly, feeling even more helpless. Nie Tian was stunned and was speechless for a long time. He had originally hoped to borrow the power of Holy Rock Academy to suppress the Yi family, but he had never thought that the vice dean of Holy Rock Academy would actually be a member of the Yi family. In this way, the situation was even more disadvantageous for the Mu family. At that moment, Mu Jiuquan suddenly looked at Jun Jinxing and said in a cold tone, Jun Jinxing, the child in Yen Er's womb is yours. Are you still going to hide it at this moment? Hide it? Nie Tian frowned. He could not help but be startled, for he did not understand what Mu Jiuquan meant. Jun Jinxing's expression changed, and he was at a loss for words. Jun Jinxing, are you going to watch your child die without doing anything? Mu Jiuquan asked again with a cold look in his eyes. When I left the Gui clan, I swore that I would never return to the Gui clan. Am I going to break my oath? Jun Jinxing said in a deep voice with an unpleasant expression. Oath. Mu Jiuquan's eyes trembled as he said, An oath can save my daughter, but can an oath save the child in her womb? Jun Jinxing's expression froze, and he was dumbfounded again. Jun Jinxing, think about it carefully. That is your child. Mu Jiuquan said in a cold tone. His eyes were filled with anger. He did not understand why Jun Jinxing would care about an oath at this moment. Brother Jun, we only need an expert. It's that simple. Nie Tian frowned. He could tell that Jun Jinxing had a powerful clan behind him, but the latter did not want to ask for help. Jun Jinxing's eyes were trembling, and his eyes were flickering. All right, I'll try. After a long time, he finally said, I'm not sure if that person will come. Then he took out a scroll and opened it. A strange aura was released, which formed a ripple in the void, and then disappeared completely. Jun Jinxing, how long will it take for him to receive the signal? Mu Jiuquan asked impatiently. He will receive the signal very quickly, but it will take him at least half a day to get here. Jun Jinxing frowned and said, We'll wait for him here for half a day. If he doesn't show up, it means that he won't come. All right. Mu Jiuquan nodded. Jun Jinxing had already done this much, so there was nothing more he could say. Then, Nie Tian and the other two waited where they were. Nie Tian used this short period of time to recover his strength. The wait was long, but after half a day, there was still no movement. He won't be coming. Jun Jinxing looked up into the void. His eyes were trembling slightly, and he sighed, Let's go. Mu Jiuchuan's expression was extremely gloomy. After a long silence, he finally nodded. All right. Nie Tian nodded helplessly. Mu Shui and Child did not have much time left. They had no choice but to go to the Yi clan. You guys wait at the gate. I'll go gather the warriors of the Mu clan. Mu Jiuchuan said and left the courtyard. Nie Tian and Jun Jinxing left the courtyard and went to the gate of the Mu clan. A moment later, Mu Jiuchuan appeared, followed by dozens of warriors in black. They were all the best warriors of the Mu clan. However, the strongest among them was only at level 7 heavenly righteousness. The weakest were only at level 1 heavenly righteousness. The Mu clan had been declining for a long time and could not compare to the Yi clan. Let's go to the Yi clan. Mu Jiuchuan's expression was gloomy. He roared and moved like a ray of light toward the Yi clan's mansion. Nie Tian and the others followed. The dozens of figures were like rolling dark clouds, pressing toward the Yi clan's mansion. The Yi clan's mansion was not far from the Mu clan's mansion. In the blink of an eye, Nie Tian and the others arrived above the Yi clan's mansion. As soon as they steadied themselves, the void around them trembled. Hundreds of warriors in black appeared and surrounded them. As I expected, they're ready. Nie Tian's eyes narrowed as he smiled bitterly inwardly. Jun Jinxing, you're finally here. At that moment, a deep voice was heard. A familiar figure appeared. It was Yi Wuya. Chapter 38:48. Blazing Nine Edge. The moment he saw the face standing behind Yi Wuya, Nie Tian's eyes trembled with astonishment. The shock in his heart was indescribable. He had come to the Void Civ realm to find Lian Jiufeng. He had never imagined that he would meet Lian Jiufeng here. What surprised him even more was that Lian Jiufeng had appeared with Yi Wuya. Shouldn't Lian Jiufeng be at the Three Lives ancestral land right now? Why was he with the Yi family? Unless he didn't know where the Three Lives ancestral ground was. Nie Tian, you're really haunting me. No matter where I go, I can always see your shadow. Lian Jiufeng also saw Nie Tian at this time. His eyes were cold and murderous. He said coldly, I told the Emperor of the Underworld to tell you not to follow me, but you still came. Yes. Lian Jiufeng, I didn't think that you would be here either. Nie Tian's eyes were dark as he asked directly, where is Cher? Don't worry. She's very safe right now, but she won't be seeing you again. Lian Jiufeng sneered. His eyes were dark and evil. What did you say? Nie Tian's pupils trembled as he growled like a wild beast. I said she wouldn't see you. Lian Jiufeng sneered darkly. She has already regained her memories. You and she are not the same kind of people. The two of you are fated to never be together. Nonsense. Nie Tian's face was stern as he growled. He wasn't sure if Lian Jiufeng was telling the truth or not. However, he believed that even if Cher regained her memories, she would still be Cher. Lian Jiufeng sneered and said, Nie Tian, you will soon understand that there are some things that once changed, they will forever be changed. There is no turning back. Is that so? Nie Tianling replied coldly. Although he exuded a murderous aura, he was very calm. He would definitely find out what had happened to Cher, but the most important thing right now was Mu Shuyan. At this moment, Yi Wuya looked at Lian Jiufeng and asked, Lord Lian, do you know this kid? An old friend. Lian Jiufeng replied calmly with a smile. Nie Tian was stunned by the scene before him. He didn't expect Yi Wuya to be so respectful before Lian Jiufeng. He was acting like a slave. He was very curious as to how Lian Jiufeng got involved with Yi Wuya. Yi Wuya, hurry up and deal with the matter in front of you. Lian Jiufeng's gaze swept past Yi Wuya. He seemed to be a little impatient. Yes. Yi Wuya nodded and stared at Jun Jinxing with a pair of gloomy eyes. He said in a deep voice, Jun Jinxing, you finally came. It seems at this time, even the Mu family has been dragged down by you. Yi Wuya, you bastard. Jun Jinxing let out a thunderous roar. His eyes turned crimson like a wild beast that was about to go berserk. It seems that you already know everything. Yi Wuya said playfully, then you should know that apart from me, no one can break the blood curse on Mu Shuyan. And your child, you don't want him to die before he's born, do you? Bastard. Jun Jinxing growled like a wild beast. The power of fire surged around him like dancing tongues of flame. Jun Jinxing. At this moment, Nie Tian took a step forward and stared at Jun Jinxing. At this moment, he had to stay calm and not be impulsive. "You Nie Tian, right?" Yi Wuye's lips twitched. He then looked at Nie Tian and asked with a faint smile. "Yi Wuye, what do you want?" Nie Tian frowned and asked in a deep voice. "Umph." Yi Wuye looked at Nie Tian and couldn't help but sneer. He said, "Nie Tian, this was supposed to be between me and Jun Jinxing, but you just had to interfere. Now, things seem to have become complicated. Even the entire Mu family is involved. What kind of result do you think I need at this point in time to be satisfied?" His eyes were cold, and there was a sense of viciousness in them. "Yi Wuye, if you help Mu Shuyan break the blood curse now, it might not be too late. At least the Yi family will have a chance to get out of this." Nie Tian's eyes darkened. He said coldly, "If you still refuse to come to your senses, you're digging your own grave." "Oh." Yi Wuye frowned and said with a smile, "Digging my own grave? I can understand that. Are you threatening me?" "It's up to you." Nie Tian's face was stern. His eyes were filled with killing intent. "Nie Tian, why don't you take a look at the current situation? Do you think you and these pieces of trash from the Mu family can overturn the situation?" Yi Wuye sneered and said, "As long as I give the order, all of you will die." "Is that so?" Nie Tianling responded with a disdainful smile. At this moment, Mu Jiuchuan took a step forward. His eyes were burning with flames as he said in a cold voice, "Kid from the Yi family, I order you to break the blood curse for my daughter. Otherwise what?" Yi Wuye interrupted him before he could finish his sentence. The latter sneered and asked in an extremely arrogant manner, "Otherwise die?" Mu Jiuchuan's eyes were filled with killing intent. He let out a deep roar and his aura skyrocketed. It was like a raging wave that caused the surrounding space to tremble. Yi Wuye felt Mu Jiuchuan's aura. However, he was not afraid at all. Instead, he sneered and shouted, "Boom! Boom! Boom!" As soon as he finished speaking, the warriors of the Yi clan moved in unison. Their imposing auras roared and formed a terrifying pressure in the void. It was extremely terrifying. "Come!" Mu Jiuchuan's eyes turned cold. His face showed no sign of fear as he let out a roar and soared into the sky like a mad dragon. He forcefully broke through the aura of the martial artists of the Yi family. Bang! A loud explosion took place in the void, as if the sky and earth were about to collapse. Nie Tian's eyes narrowed slightly. The atmosphere was extremely tense. If Mu Jiuchuan attacked directly, a battle of life and death between the Yi family and the Mu family would be inevitable. Yi Wuye's eyes widened as he roared, "Everyone, listen up. Kill Mu Jiuchuan." "Yes." The martial artists of the Yi family replied at the same time with thunderous voices. Boom! In the next instant, hundreds of martial artists of the Yi family, with the strength of sacred Emperor Tianyi, unleashed their auras at the same time. The auras merged into one and crushed down on Nie Tian and the others like invisible mountains. Chapter 38-49. Today I will erase the Mu family from Nine Changes City. Yi Wuye's eyes were filled with murderous intent. He spoke coldly with a ferocious smile on his face. His original intention was to target Jun Jinxing, but he did not expect things to turn out this way. However, this was also good. With the support of his family, he could directly destroy the Mu family and eliminate the source of trouble. Bastards of the Yi family, do you think that I, Mu Jiuchuan, will be afraid of you just because you have more people? It was at this moment that Mu Jiuchuan let out a furious roar of laughter. Then, like a frenzied beast, he burst forth with a powerful burst of energy that spread wildly in all directions. Attack! Rumble! Suddenly, there was a rumbling sound in the void, as if the whole world was about to collapse. Yi Wuye frowned, and his expression changed slightly. He suddenly felt that the power in Mu Jiuchuan's body suddenly became stronger, as if it was about to break through the limit. The power of the bloodline. Nie Tian's eyes narrowed at this moment, and his expression changed in horror. Boom! At this moment, Mu Jiuchuan's body shook, and the huge force instantly exploded, condensing into a huge wheel in the void. Suddenly, the world shook, and the wind and clouds surged. Is this the power of the bloodline of the Mu family? Nietian felt an extremely strong bloodline aura at this moment, and could not help but frown as he thought to himself. The bloodline of the reincarnation sect. On the other side, when the blazing nine edges saw the huge wheel in the void, his eyes trembled and he exclaimed excitedly, "This person is indeed from the Mu family of Qin City." The Mu family of Qin City. The blazing nine edges also mentioned this name. Just as Nietian guessed, the blazing nine edges did not know where the Three Lives ancestral land was. Not only did the Emperor of the Dead tell Nietian about the Mu family of Qin City, but he also told the blazing nine edges. After the blazing nine edges came to the void Luo world, he had been looking for the Mu family of Qin City. When he was in St. Luo school, he knew that there was a Mu family in Nine Changes City, so he came here. However, he did not go to the Mu clan directly. Instead, he went to the Yi clan first. He hadn't been very sure that Mu Jiuquan was from the Qin City's Mu family, but now he was very sure that Mu Jiuquan was from the Qin City's Mu family. Other things might be wrong, but the Qin City's Mu clan's Luan Gate bloodline would definitely not be wrong. Nietian, I really didn't expect you to find the Qin City's Mu family before me. The blazing nine-edged blade sneered as his eyes swept over Nietian, revealing a gloomy intent. Boom! At this moment, Mu Jiuquan once again released a powerful force. Immediately, a second giant wheel appeared in the void, and it was even more terrifying than the first one. Buzz! The two giant wheels were resisting the pressure of the aura in the void. A low rumbling sound came from the space, as if it was about to shatter. Two-wheeled wheel door. Nietian's eyes trembled slightly, and he immediately reacted. Mu Jiuquan had directly used his two-wheeled wheel door bloodline. However, Mu Jiuquan was only a heaven-righteous 9th level saint after all. Even if he used his two-wheeled wheel door bloodline, it was still very difficult for him to resist the pressure of hundreds of saint martial artists. Mu Jiuquan, is this the power of your Mu clan's bloodline? So it's not that great after all. Yi Wuye saw the situation and laughed sinisterly, extremely arrogant. Is that so? Mu Jiuquan's eyes darkened, and he roared like a wild beast. Then, the power of his body suddenly erupted, and the third giant wheel appeared. Rumble! Rumble! The moment the third giant wheel appeared, the void rumbled. Then, the pressure above Mu Jiuquan's head could no longer bear it and directly exploded, turning into a violent wave that crazily rushed in all directions. Hundreds of Yi clan martial artists trembled at this moment, and then they were all sent flying, madly retreating thousands of meters before they could stabilize themselves. Some of the weaker Yi clan martial artists were even seriously injured, their faces pale, and blood flowed from the corners of their mouths. This is the terrifying power of the bloodline. Nietian saw this scene, and his eyes couldn't help but darken. His expression changed, and his heart was filled with shock. The Luan Gate bloodline of the 9 primordial bloodlines was indeed extraordinary. Mu Jiuquan was only a three-wheeled wheel door bloodline, but he was actually able to resist the pressure of hundreds of saint martial artists with his heaven-righteous 9th level strength. It was too terrifying. One had to know that Mu Jiuquan was only a three-wheeled wheel door bloodline, and it wasn't a powerful bloodline at all. Moreover, Nietian discovered that when Mu Jiuquan activated his bloodline power, that kind of power would show an explosive increase every time he activated a wheel. It was hard to imagine how terrifying it would be if he had 8 or 9 wheels. And how terrifying would Mu Chun, who had a 10-wheel door bloodline, be if he matured in the future. No wonder Mu Jiuquan was so excited when he learned that Mu Chun had successfully broken through to the 10-wheel door. Yi family trash, is this your strength? You can't even withstand a single blow. At this time, Mu Jiuquan roared like a wild beast, but there was a trace of blood at the corner of his mouth. In the palm of his hand, the heaven-punishing blood seal appeared again. The heaven-punishing blood seal had long merged with the bloodline power of the Mu family martial artists. So when Mu Jiuquan used his bloodline power, the heaven-punishing blood seal would also erupt. Therefore, he couldn't maintain the state of activating his bloodline power for long. Die! In the next moment, Mu Jiuquan roared and immediately moved. Like an arrow released from a bow, he charged straight at Yi Wuye. Hurry up and protect me. Yi Wuye's expression suddenly changed, and he screamed in horror. His small face was as white as a sheet of paper, and there was no trace of blood. Give me your life. Mu Jiuquan roared in midair, and his aura continued to soar. Boom! At this time, the sky trembled, and suddenly a terrifying force appeared. With a loud bang, it condensed into a giant palm and pressed down on Mu Jiuquan. Mu Jiuquan felt a terrifying killing force coming from above his head, and his expression darkened. His body changed, and his eyes trembled slightly. He directly slammed his palm into the sky. Boom! In the next moment, the two giant palms collided in the void, and the sky trembled as if it was about to collapse. Mu Jiuquan's body trembled slightly, and he was pushed back a few hundred meters by the violent impact. He barely managed to stabilize himself. In the sky, a blood-red figure flew back a few thousand meters before barely managing to stabilize himself. It's him. Nie Tian's expression darkened when he saw that the person who had attacked was the elder from the Yi family who had fought with him before. This guy had clashed with Mu Jiuquan's powerful palm, and under the circumstances that Mu Jiuquan had hurriedly attacked, he had lost miserably. His body was covered in blood, and his body was trembling nonstop. It was obvious that he had been severely injured. Chapter 3850. Al, how could you be so strong? The old man from the Yi family stabilized his body in the sky. His eyes were trembling as he stared at Mu Jiuquan in shock. He had a high status in the Yi family as one of the 3 patriarchs of the Yi family. Even so, he was unable to withstand a single blow from Mu Jiuquan. If Mu Jiuquan had not attacked hastily, he would have been a corpse by now. He had always thought that his strength was on par with Mu Jiuquan's. Even if there was a gap between them, it should be very small. He finally realized how terrifying Mu Jiuquan was. Humph! Mu Jiuquan steadied his figure and let out a hollow laugh. He completely ignored the old man and fixed his murderous gaze onto Yi Wuye. What are you trying to do? Yi Wuye sensed the ferocious killing intent coming at him. His eyes trembled, and his teeth chattered as he spoke. What do you think? Mu Jiuquan growled and moved again. However, this time, the other martialists of the Yi family also followed suit as his figure flickered. Kill! The void was filled with battle cries. Dozens of martial artists of the Yi family attacked at the same time. Suddenly, a powerful force enveloped the void and shrouded Mu Jiuquan. Boom! Mu Jiuquan unleashed his bloodline power once again. The reincarnation gate forcibly broke through the combined attack of the martial artists. On the other side, the other martial artists of the Yi family attacked as well. Surging energy surged toward Mu Jiuquan like ferocious beasts. Watch out, clan leader! The martial artists of the Mu family shouted and dashed forward. Suddenly, the void was in chaos. Heaven and earth shook violently as boundless energy surged. It felt like time and space were about to explode. Nie Tian and Jun Jinxing quickly retreated. Given their strength, they would most likely become cannon fodder if they joined the battle. This is bad. Nie Tian's eyes trembled as he watched the scene unfold before him. He felt very uneasy. Mu Jiuquan was indeed strong. However, he would not be able to withstand the attacks of so many martial artists of the Yi family. Furthermore, there were too few martial artists of the Mu family. They were no match for the martial artists of the Yi family. These people from a Mu clan indeed have the heaven-punishing blood mark on them. On the other side, Lian Jiufeng was watching the battle with great interest. He had already sensed the existence of the heaven-punishing blood seal on the Mu family martial artists. However, Mu Jiuquan and the others didn't sense any heaven-punishing devil energy from Lian Jiufeng. Lian Jiufeng had indeed fused with the main body of the heaven-punishing demon heart. However, The aura of the heaven-punishing demon Qi had changed after he had fused with the demon heart. It was no longer the heaven-punishing demon Qi that the emperor of the underworld possessed. The heaven-punishing demon Qi in Nie Tian's body was the heaven-punishing demon Qi of the emperor of the underworld. That was why Mu Jiuquan and the others still didn't know Lian Jiufeng's identity. Boom, 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 bang, bang, bang. At this moment, the sounds of collisions rang out endlessly in the void. The entire world was in a state of chaos, as though it was about to be destroyed. Nie Tian saw more than a dozen Mu clan cultivators die miserably. Less than half of them were still resisting with all their might. Meanwhile, Mu Jiuquan was fighting hundreds of Yi family martial artists alone. He had killed dozens of them and severely injured more than 100 of them. However, he was also severely injured. His entire body was drenched in blood. It was as if he was bathing in blood. "Mr. Nya, let's do it." Jun Jianxing could no longer stand it. His eyes darkened as he prepared to attack. "Calm down." Nie Tian stopped Jun Jianxing with a dark expression. Given the current situation, it would be useless even if they joined the battle. Right now, they could only wait. Nie Tian had already prepared himself for the worst. If he had no other choice, he would activate the inverse mark of the demon god and fight to the death. Boom! At this moment, Mu Jiuquan let out a roar. His aura erupted wildly as the power of the gate of reincarnation reappeared. He forcefully broke through the encirclement of the Yi family martial artists. Yi Wu Yi died. In the next instant, he let out a low roar. His bloodshot eyes locked onto Yi Wu Yi. Then, he pounced at Yi Wu Yi like a ferocious beast. "Help me!" Yi Wu Yi's eyes trembled in horror, and he screamed in fear. Boom! Mu Jiuquan's figure was like a clap of thunder as he slammed his palm forward to kill Yi Wu Yi. All he needed was Yi Wu Yi's blood. "Mu Jiuquan, you've gone too far." However, at that instant, a deep voice could be heard in the sky. Following this, the space trembled slightly as a tremendous force descended, causing the space to tremble. Bang! In the next moment, that terrifying force descended. Mu Jiuquan didn't even have time to react before it landed. His body trembled, and he was sent flying, leaving behind a trail of blood in the air. Patriarch Mu, Nie Tian, and Jun Jianxing exclaimed in unison as their eyes trembled with fear. Lord Clan Leader. At the same time, the remaining martial artists of the Mu clan also exclaimed. Mu Jiuquan's figure fell like a falling leaf. However, he stopped abruptly when he was about to hit the ground. His body was bathed in blood, but his eyes were still sharp and filled with murderous intent. Yi Kenyang. He steadied himself, looked at the figure in the sky, and called out his name. Dean. Jun Jianxing's eyes trembled and his expression changed when he heard the name. He looked at the figure in the sky. It turned out that the figure was Yi Kenyang, the deputy dean of the Holy Rock Institute, from the Yi clan. The Yi clan was not powerful in the Nine Changes City in the past. It was because of Yi Kenyang that the Yi clan had become one of the top 3 clans in the Nine Changes City. Jun Jianxing had not expected that Yi Kenyang would return in person for the sake of Yi Wu Yi. Mu Jiuquan, how dare you challenge the Yi clan? You're courting death. Yi Kenyang stood in the sky and roared like a furious lion. Bring it on. Mu Jiuquan was not afraid at all. He roared and dashed toward Yi Kenyang. He activated the power of the gate of reincarnation and charged at Yi Kenyang. Nie Tian's expression changed when he saw this. He could sense that Mu Jiuquan's aura was unstable. It was obvious that he had reached the limit of his martial body. However, Mu Jiuquan had used the power of the gate of reincarnation again. It was obvious that he was determined to put up a desperate fight. How dare you challenge the dean with your strength? What a joke. Yi Kenyang sneered as he looked at Mu Jiuquan, who was dashing toward him. He then turned his palm in the sky and slammed it down. The sky suddenly sank, and the heavens and earth shook. Chapter 38:51. Bang! Yi Kenyang slammed his palm forward, causing the rift to tremble. At that instant, it felt like the heavens and earth were about to collapse. Strong gusts of wind howled in the rift, while dark clouds rumbled. The entire place was filled with a murderous intent. Tian's eyes were filled with terror. His nerves were extremely tensed. He knew that Mu Jiuquan would definitely die if Yi Kanyang's palm landed on him. Mu Jiuquan's reincarnation bloodline was indeed powerful, but he was facing a heavenly tribulation ruler sage. Besides, he was already at the end of his rope, thus it was impossible for him to fight against Yi Kanyang. At that crucial moment, an unexpected change took place. Whoosh! A murderous sword intent arrived from the rift. Its sharp aura filled the space within a few 100,000 meters in an instant. At this moment, everyone felt a suffocating feeling. Moreover, it was piercingly cold, and there was a kind of bone-chilling coldness that seeped into the marrow. Such a terrifying sword intent. Tian's eyes flickered as he exclaimed in his heart. The sudden sword intent was so terrifying that it even caused his sword intent to tremble slightly. Bang! In the next instant, the sword intent pierced through Yi Kanyang's palm. Following a loud explosion, the shadow of the palm shattered into pieces. Yi Kanyang frowned as he exclaimed in surprise. He then took a few steps back and summoned a barrier around his body to resist the attack from Mu Jiuquan's reincarnation gate. Who's there? After he stabilized his figure, he uttered a cold growl with a murderous look in his eyes. People of the Yi clan, don't you think it's a little too much to bully us with numbers? Meanwhile, a scornful voice could be heard in the rift. Following this, a green-robed figure appeared and stood in the rift like a sharp sword. It felt like the space around him would be torn apart if he moved slightly. Someone from the ghost tribe. Yi Kanyang's eyes flickered as he looked at the green-robed figure. His expression changed drastically as he exclaimed in shock. He did not expect the person to be an expert from the ghost tribe. Sovereign sword punishment. In the next second, he suddenly understood. He turned around and stared at Jun Jianxing with his cold eyes. Jun Jianxing was half human and half ghost, so he could be considered as half ghost. At this time, a ghost race powerhouse suddenly appeared. If it wasn't him, then who could it be? Sixth uncle. Jun Jianxing's eyes trembled slightly when he saw the expert from the ghost clan. This ghost was none other than his sixth uncle, Yan Wuqi. Jun Jianxing followed his mother's surname, so he didn't share the same surname as his sixth uncle. Good nephew. Sixth uncle was delayed by some matters and came a little late. Please don't take it to heart. Yan Wuqi chuckled and moved to Mu Jiuquan's side. He supported the swaying Mu Jiuquan and sent him to Jun Jianxing's side. Jun Jianxing's expression was a little strange as he nodded. He had already given up, thinking that no one would come. Little did he expect that his sixth uncle, Yan Wuqi, would still come. Chief Mu, are you all right? Tian took a step forward and caught Mu Jiuquan. His heart sank when he sensed Mu Jiuquan's aura. Mu Jiuquan's aura was weak and intermittent. It seemed like he couldn't hold on any longer. Tian put him in the 9 superbs first. I'll look after him. Fat Cat's voice was heard at this time. Tian agreed and put Mu Jiuquan in the 9 superbs. With Fat Cat's care, Mu Jiuquan shouldn't die for the time being. Fortunately, Yan Wuqi arrived in time. Otherwise, Tian really wouldn't know what to do next. Sir, you're from the Ghost Clan. You shouldn't be here, right? Yi Kanyang took a step forward and said to Yan Wuqi with a gloomy look. The virtual Luo realm was different from the ordinary sacred realm. The martial artists here were divided into the human clan and the ghost clan. Moreover, there was a peace treaty between the human clan and the ghost clan. They divided their ruling territories into the human realm and the ghost realm. 9 Changes City was located in the human realm. Under normal circumstances, the members of the ghost clan were not allowed to enter the human realm. In particular, some experts were not allowed to enter the human realm without permission. Old man, I'm not here to fight. I'm only here to see my nephew. Can't I do that? Yan Wuqi laughed and raised his eyebrows. You? Yi Kanyang's face darkened. He was speechless for a moment. He didn't expect Yan Wuqi to respond in this way. Sir, you should know about the treaty between the human clan and the ghost clan. If you fight here, aren't you afraid of starting a war between the human clan and the ghost clan? Yi Kanyang calmed down a little and said in a deep voice, Old man, you're too full of yourself. Yan Wuqi laughed and said, You can't represent the human clan, and I can't represent the ghost clan. If we really fight to the death, do you think it'll cause a big commotion? Those old fogies from the human clan and the ghost clan will at most open their eyes and watch, then close their eyes and go to sleep. They won't care about us. With that, Yin Wuchi folded his arms, looking like he didn't care at all. You? Once again, Yi Qinyang was speechless. Although Yin Wuchi said it carelessly, it was the truth. The human clan and the ghost clan hadn't had a major conflict for millions of years. Of course, they wouldn't start a war over a small city. The experts of the human clan and the ghost clan all held the attitude that it was better to avoid trouble. As long as it wasn't too big of a disturbance, they wouldn't get involved in a war between the two clans. Yin Wuchi was very clear about this. Otherwise, he wouldn't have appeared in the human clan's territory. Sir, why are you here? Yi Qinyang suppressed the anger in his heart and asked coldly. Didn't I tell you? I'm here to see my nephew. Yin Wuchi laughed and glanced at Jun Jianxing. He chuckled and said, Brat, I haven't seen you for a long time. You've grown so big. Yi Qinyang's face darkened. He was so angry that his lungs were about to explode. Of course, he knew Jun Jianxing's identity. However, Yin Wuchi's sudden appearance was beyond his expectations. Back then, when Jun Jianxing stole the holy relic of Holy Rock Institute, the Institute only expelled him but didn't kill him because they were worried about his identity as a member of the Ghost Clan. Yin Wuchi's appearance proved that behind Jun Jianxing, there was indeed an extremely powerful Ghost Clan clan. Good nephew, you didn't call Sixth Uncle here just to watch the show, did you? Tell me, what's the matter? At this moment, Yin Wuchi's lips curled into a smile as he looked at Jun Jianxing. Chapter 3852. Yin Wuchi didn't expect something like this to happen to Jun Jianxing. Jun Jianxing, you're lying. Yi Qinyang's face darkened as soon as Jun Jianxing finished his sentence. He growled, You stole the sacred relic of the Academy. The Academy spared your life for the sake of your hard work and expelled you from the Academy. I can't believe you didn't repent and frame someone else. This is outrageous. Today, I will represent the Academy to clean up the mess. Boom! Then, Yi Qinyang growled and stepped forward. His chi rose up like a tidal wave in the sky. It was extremely oppressive. Old fart, I'm talking to my nephew. It's not your place to interrupt. But as soon as he finished speaking, Yin Wuchi's eyes narrowed and he took a step forward. Instantly, a sharp sword intent whistled through the air, piercing through the air to kill Yin Wuchi. Bang! The next second, before Yi Qinyang could react, his aura was broken and he was knocked back hundreds of meters by the sword will. After he steadied himself, he realized that there was a deep cut on his face. The sword will had penetrated deep into his bones, and he felt a burning pain. Yi Qinyang's face darkened. He growled but didn't know what to say. He didn't expect Yin Wuchi to be this powerful. He initially thought that Yin Wuchi was only slightly stronger than him. But it seemed like Yin Wuchi had the ability to kill him in an instant. What a terrifying sword intent. Nie Tian's eyes trembled when he saw this, and he was shocked. He speculated that Yin Wuchi was a high-level swordsman of the Heavenly Punishment Realm. He might even have achieved the Heavenly Enlightenment Realm. In front of Yin Wuchi, Yi Qinyang was completely powerless. Jianxing, what do you want to do with this man? Yin Wuchi's face darkened, and he asked Jun Jianxing coldly. One word from Jun Jianxing, and he could kill everyone in the Yi clan. Sixth Uncle, this is a matter between me and Yi Wuye. I only need a fair chance to fight. Jun Jianxing's face was as gloomy as still water. His eyes were surging with endless cold as he stared at Yi Wuye coldly. Is that all? Yin Wuchi frowned and said coldly. Isn't that too easy for these scum? The corners of Jun Jianxing's mouth twitched coldly. He stepped forward and said in a loud voice, Yi Wuye, do you dare to have a fair fight with me? Yi Wuye was stunned for a moment. His eyes couldn't help but tremble. It was obvious that he was very afraid. He had always been afraid of Jun Jianxing. In addition, he had fought with Jun Jianxing after his breakthrough and almost died at the hands of the latter. This made him even more afraid. Asking him to fight Jun Jianxing to the death Wasn't that asking him to die? Brat, stand out if you're still a man. Yin Wuqi smiled cold and growled. You have to bear the consequences of your own actions. Big Grandpa. At this moment, Yi Wuya looked at Yi Qinyang with a pitiful expression. Knightless, haven't you already broken through to the heavenly justice realm? Why are you still afraid of him? Yi Qinyang frowned and asked cold. Yi Wuya's eyes trembled. He was completely speechless. Brother Yi, isn't he just a half-human, half-ghost brat? Why are you afraid of him? At this moment, a low voice suddenly sounded. Then, a figure appeared behind Yi Wuya and put a hand on his shoulder. This figure was none other than Lian Jiufeng. Yi Wuya suddenly felt a surge of energy flowing into his body. His expression changed, and he couldn't help but cry out. Yi Wuya, with his blood imprint, your strength will increase by at least 3 levels. It shouldn't be a problem for you to kill that guy. Lian Jiufeng's lips curled into a cold smile as he sent a sound transmission to Yi Wuya. Yes. Yi Wuya's eyes trembled and he nodded heavily. Lian Jiufeng. Seeing Lian Jiufeng speak, Nietian couldn't help but narrow his eyes and change his expression. In the next moment, he felt that there was a strange power in Yi Wuya's body that was rising crazily. Heaven-punishing blood seal. Nietian's expression changed, and he exclaimed inwardly. It seemed that the power in Yi Wuya's body was similar to the heaven-punishing blood seal, but it was slightly different. Lian Jiufeng had fused with the heaven-punishing demon heart, so it wasn't strange that he could release the heaven-punishing blood seal. Perhaps it was because the aura of his heaven-punishing demon chi was different, so the heaven-punishing blood seal he condensed was also different. All right, I'll fight you. The blood seal was completed in the blink of an eye. Yi Wuya felt the power in his body exploding. He took a step forward and shouted confidently. All right. Jun Jianxing didn't notice anything. His eyes were cold and murderous as he replied solemnly. Wait. However, at this moment, Lian Jiufeng stepped forward again. The corner of his mouth twitched coldly as he stared at Nietian and said, Nietian, since we're playing, why don't we play a little bigger? What do you mean? Nietian frowned and asked coldly. He didn't know what Lian Jiufeng was planning. Just the battle between Yi Wuya and Jun Jianxing is too boring. Lian Jiufeng smiled faintly and said, Why don't we each send out 3 people and fight 3 against 3? 3 against 3? Nietian was stunned. He couldn't help but frown. Yes. Lian Jiufeng smiled again and said, But 3 against 3 is only a battle between us juniors. The seniors can just watch from the sidelines. Then how do you want to fight? Nietian frowned and asked solemnly. The simplest way is to win 2 out of 3. Life or death is not a concern. Lian Jiufeng smiled evilly and said indifferently. So what if the winner wins? So what if the loser loses? Nietian's eyes focused slightly and he asked. The winner can propose 3 conditions to the loser, and the loser must fulfill them. Lian Jiufeng's eyes flashed, and the evilness in his eyes became even more obvious. Is that so? Nietian laughed and said, What if I want you to die? You want me to die? Lian Jiufeng's lips curled into a smile. He actually said, Are you willing to do that? Nietian frowned, and his expression stiffened slightly. Then he said, What if I want to see share? Sure. Lian Jiufeng smiled faintly and said, To avoid unnecessary trouble, we can propose our conditions right now. We can both accept them. How about it? Nietian frowned and turned to look at Jun Jianxing. Then he looked at Lian Jiufeng and said, Lian Jiufeng, are you sure you can make the decision for the Yi family? Of course. Lian Jiufeng laughed and looked at Yi Qinyang. Lord Lian's words are my words. Yi Qinyang nodded slightly and said solemnly. Nietian's eyes focused and his expression changed. Chapter 38:53. Nietian stared darkly at Lian Jiufeng and agreed to the latter suggestion. Yin Wuqi frowned and couldn't help but look at Jun Jianxing. The latter nodded, so he didn't say anything. Very well. Lian Jiufeng smiled faintly and said, If that's the case, then let us state our conditions. Amen. Nietian nodded and took a step forward. He stated his first condition. If we win, the Yi family will immediately break the blood curse in Mu Shuyan's body. Sure. Yi Kanyang's eyes darkened slightly. He agreed without hesitation. If I win, the Mu family must tell me a place, the Three Lives Ancestral Lands. Lion Jiufeng smiled wickedly. His eyes flashed with cold light as he looked at Nie Tian from afar. Amen. Nie Tian nodded. He had guessed correctly. Lion Jiufeng didn't know where the Three Lives Ancestral Lands were. Then, he stated his second condition. Second, you must bring me to see Shui. All right. Lion Jiufeng already knew that Nie Tian would state this condition, so he agreed with a smile. He then stated his second condition. I want a forbidden astral soul. Forbidden star soul? Upon hearing these 4 words, Nie Tian's eyes involuntarily narrowed, and his heart sank. He never thought that Lion Jiufeng would know about forbidden astral souls. This meant that Lion Jiufeng knew a lot about star origin stones. Don't be nervous. I won't tell anyone else your little secret. Lion Jiufeng saw Nie Tian's panic and smiled faintly. You should have many forbidden astral souls. I only want one. Anyone is fine. All right. Nie Tian's eyes flashed as he agreed. He no longer had any forbidden astral souls on him, but he still agreed to Lion Jiufeng's condition. He really wanted to know how much Lion Jiufeng knew about star origin stones. Also, why did Lion Jiufeng want a forbidden astral soul? Does he also want to become a Star Lord? One last condition. You can't pester Cher anymore. Nie Tian said cold and gloomy. Sure. Lion Jiufeng smiled faintly and said, I will not seek out Cher after the matter of the Void Civ realm is over. But if she asks me, I won't refuse. Don't worry. She won't look for you. Nie Tian's lips curled into a cold smile as he replied in a deep voice. Lion Jiufeng chuckled and said, My third condition is that you help me kill someone. Who? Nie Tian frowned and asked coldly. Emperor of the Underworld. Lion Jiufeng said solemnly as he enunciated the name word by word. The Emperor of the Underworld? Nie Tian couldn't help but let out a cry of surprise. He never thought that the person Lion Jiufeng wanted him to kill would be the Netherworld Emperor. With Lion Jiufeng's strength and the hidden experts behind him, he should be able to kill the Emperor of the Underworld easily. Why didn't he do it himself? Why did he want Nie Tian to help him kill the Emperor of the Underworld? Sure. Nie Tian nodded without much hesitation. Very good. We can decide who will fight now. Lion Jiufeng laughed sinisterly. At this time, a strange look appeared in his eyes. He seemed to be brewing some kind of scheme. A while later, both sides decided on the martial practitioners who would fight. On Nie Tian's side, Nie Tian, Jun Jinxing, and Mu Chongshan. On Lion Jiufeng's side, Lion Jiufeng, Yi Wuye, and Yi Lang. After that, both sides decided on the order. Mu Chongshan against Yi Lang in the first match, Jun Jinxing against Yi Wuye in the second match, and Nie Tian against Lion Jiufeng in the third match. At this time, Yin Wuqi walked behind Nie Tian and asked, Kid, that red-haired kid is a little strange. What are your chances of winning against him? Don't worry. I won't lose. Nie Tian's lips twitched. His face was calm, but his eyes were filled with determination. Are you that confident? Yin Wuqi chuckled, looking noncommittal. Then, the first match began. Mu Chongshan and Yi Lang were like two mountains. They stood in the sky, their bodies surging with a terrifying aura. Mu Chongshan was a genius of the Mu clan. He was already at the 7th level of the Heavenly Mandate realm at such a young age. He was representing the Mu clan this time. Yi Lang was a genius of the Yi clan. His cultivation was much higher than Mu Chongshan's. He was at the 9th level of the Heavenly Mandate realm. This guy called Yi Lang's cultivation is higher than Mu Chongshan's. I'm afraid this battle will be a little dangerous. Jun Jinxing frowned. He could not hide the worry on his face. That's not for sure. Nie Tian smiled faintly. The corners of his mouth twitched into a strange smile. He had already sensed that Mu Chongshan was a warrior of the 3 cycles of Samsara bloodline. If he released the power of his bloodline, Yi Lang might not be able to withstand it. Die. At this moment, Yi Lang roared and moved. He turned into a ray of light in the void and attacked Mu Chongshan. Good timing. Mu Chongshan roared in a low voice. He was furious and released his aura. Suddenly, a terrifying force surged in the empty space like a huge ripple. It was incomparably violent. Bang! In the next instant, a dull sound came from the void. Yilang's body flew backward for a few thousand meters. How is this possible? Yilang shouted as he steadied himself. His eyes were filled with shock. He did not expect Mu Chongshan to be so terrifying. The power of the Mu family's bloodline is not something you can resist. Mu Chongshan had won with a single move. He immediately seized the opportunity and soared into the sky. His aura surged once again and crashed into the empty space like a raging wave. Boom, boom, boom. Explosions could be heard continuously in the sky. Mu Chongshan's eyes were filled with killing intent as he stared at Yilang. The power of his bloodline was unleashed wildly. He's going to use the three-wheel gates. Seeing this, Nietian's eyes slightly trembled and his heart shook. Mu Chongshan was suppressing Yilang with one cycle of samsara. If he used all 3 cycles of samsara, he would definitely kill Yilang. Trash! Yi Kanyang's eyes trembled when he saw this. He roared like a wild beast. He did not expect Yilang, whose cultivation was 2 levels higher than Mu Chongshan, to be so weak. Humph. On the other side, Lian Jiufeng smiled coldly. The corner of his lips curled into an evil smile, and with a single thought, an invisible demonic energy that could destroy the heavens surged out and spread out soundlessly. Chapter 38:54. What's going on? The sudden change caused everyone to be stunned, and they couldn't help but cry out in alarm. Mu Chongshan was about to kill Yilang. Why did he suddenly spit out blood? Something's wrong. Yin Wuqi's eyes darkened as he shouted in a cold tone. His eyes were filled with murderous intent, making him look extremely terrifying. Nietian's expression changed as he frowned. In that instant, he felt a strange force appear in Mu Chongshan's body and attack his martial body, causing him to lose control. However, the strange force disappeared in a flash, and then became completely silent. He could not help but feel puzzled by the strange scene. His instincts told him that someone was behind this. How did I? Mu Chongshan's body trembled slightly. His eyes were filled with shock. He had no idea what was going on. Good chance. However, at that moment, Yilang's eyes suddenly narrowed. His eyes were filled with joy as he smiled coldly. Then, his body moved like a ray of light as he unleashed his aura and charged toward Mu Chongshan. Oh no! Nietian's expression suddenly changed upon seeing this, and he cried out inwardly. Bang! In the next instant, before Mu Chongshan could react, Yilang's palm landed on him. An earth-shattering aura descended and a muffled sound could be heard in the sky, followed by a flash of blood. The genius of the Mu clan, Mu Chongshan, did not even have time to scream before he was killed. Mu Chongshan, the martial artists of the Mu clan exclaimed in shock when they saw the bloody scene. At this moment, Nietian's expression also became grim, as if he had just killed someone. This Yilang was indeed vicious. He had killed Mu Chongshan the moment he lost control of his martial body. The martial artists of the Mu clan were furious, but there was nothing they could do. This was a battle between martial artists. Life and death were up to fate. I won. At that instant, Yilang stood in the sky with a pair of cold and arrogant eyes as he said arrogantly, "The martial artists of the Mu clan, the power of the Mu clan's bloodline, is just a so-so." Ha ha! His maniacal laughter resounded in the ears of the Mu family martial artists like steel needles. Everyone could see that there was something unusual about that moment. However, the result of the battle was right in front of them, leaving them speechless. Brat, you cheated. It was at this moment Yin Wuqi suddenly let out a growl and took a step forward. His aura surged like a tsunami, and his eyes locked onto blazing Jiufeng with cold, killing intent. Senior, please do not speak carelessly without proof. Lian Jiufeng was not afraid at all. He smiled faintly and playfully. You. Yin Wuqi's face froze, and he found himself at a loss for words. He couldn't prove that Lion Jiufeng had cheated. Lion Jiufeng, you sure have some tricks up your sleeve. Nie Tian also stepped forward and said in a cold voice, if I'm not wrong, you've activated the heaven-punishing blood seal in Mu Chongshan's body, haven't you? Nie Tian, you've lost the first round. Are you trying to deny it because you can't afford to lose? Lian Jiufeng's eyes narrowed slightly before he said in a cold voice. He hadn't expected Nie Tian to see it so clearly. He had indeed activated the heaven-punishing blood seal in Mu Chongshan's body and caused the latter to lose control of his martial body for a moment, giving Yi Lang the opportunity to kill him. Although Mu Chongshan's heaven-punishing blood seal was different from Lian Jiufeng's heaven-punishing demon qi, the heaven-punishing demon heart was the same. Lian Jiufeng had used the heaven-punishing demon heart to affect Mu Chongshan's heaven-punishing blood seal. You don't have to provoke me. Nie Tianling smiled coldly and said, I, Nie Tian, can afford to lose, but I must understand why I lost. Even if you don't admit it, I know what happened. You won the first round. The corner of Lian Jiufeng's mouth twitched. He smiled faintly and said, in that case, let's continue with the second round. All right. Nie Tian nodded slightly. He turned around and glanced at Yin Wuqi, signaling him not to act rashly. Yin Wuqi frowned, but in the end, he retreated. At this moment, he had a strange feeling. Although Nie Tian was only a junior, he felt a faint sense of threat from Nie Tian. To be more precise, it was a kind of deterrence. Therefore, he had to consider every word Nie Tian said and every decision he made. Nie Tian blurred into action and arrived at Jun Jinxing's side. Jun Jinxing, be careful of Yi Wuya. His strength is different from before. Amen. Jun Jinxing nodded. His eyes were cold and murderous. He stared at Yi Wuya like a venomous wolf in the darkness. Jun Jinxing, come. At this time, Yi Wuya sneered. He moved and leaped into the sky. It was an extremely provocative move. Yi Wuya, I want you to pay with your blood. Jun Jinxing growled. He rushed over like a mad dragon. His aura exploded, and the world around him trembled. Jun Jinxing and Yi Wuya had an irreconcilable hatred. This battle was destined to be a bloody one. Nie Tian's eyes darkened. He did not look relaxed. He did not know what Lian Jiufeng had done to Yi Wuya, but he could feel that Yi Wuya's aura was much stronger than before. Jun Jinxing, you must want to kill me, Yi Wuya said coldly in the sky. His eyes were dark. Yi Wuya, you are the reason why I am where I am today. Only one of us will survive today's battle. Jun Jinxing's eyes were dark and murderous. Every word he said was filled with Yi Wuya's killing intent. Yi Wuya had made him suffer so much. There was no way he would let the latter live. Umph. Yi Wuya sneered and said, it's a pity that you can't kill me. Is that so? Jun Jinxing sneered. Suddenly, all the power in his body gushed out, turning his entire body into a vortex of flames. The endless power of flames surged out, condensing into thousands of tongues of flame, attacking the void like thousands of demons dancing wildly. The space within hundreds of thousands of meters was scorching hot like a furnace. I didn't expect that kid to be so strong. Yin Wuqi's eyes widened in astonishment upon seeing this. I didn't expect him to be so strong. He didn't expect Jun Jinxing to be so strong. What puzzled him even more was that Jun Jinxing's bloodline power was unexpectedly strong. He had seen Jun Jinxing's bloodline power before, but was not this strong. It seemed that Jun Jinxing's bloodline power had improved. Chapter 3855. Boom! Jun Jinxing's figure was like a mad dragon. His entire body was burning with violent flames, which spread wildly in all directions as if he was going to burn the heaven and earth. How terrifying! Seeing this scene, everyone's eyes couldn't help but tremble in shock. It was hard to imagine that the power unleashed by a level 1 heavenly righteousness martial artist was so terrifying that it overturned everyone's understanding of level 1 heavenly righteousness martial artists. This half-human, half-ghost kid is so terrifying. Yi Kanyang's pupils shrank at the sight of this, and his face was filled with astonishment. He finally understood why Yi Wuye was so afraid of Jun Jinxing just now. Although Jun Jinxing's cultivation was only at level 1 heavenly righteousness, the power he displayed was comparable to a level 5 heavenly righteousness martial artist or even a higher level sage. Come on! Yi Wuye felt the burning intent coming towards him, but he was not afraid at all. Instead, he sneered and his aura surged crazily. He struck out with his palm, and the terrifying palm shadow shook the heaven and earth, suppressing the sea of flames. Boom! In the next moment, the two terrifying powers collided. The void suddenly shook violently, and it seemed like the heaven and earth were about to be annihilated. Everyone felt the fluctuation in the void and stepped back. Who would have thought that the battle between the two young martial artists would be so intense as soon as they started fighting? Nietion's eyes narrowed, and his face was filled with astonishment. The power displayed by Jun Jinxing had already shocked him, but Yi Wuye's improvement surprised him even more. Yi Wuye should not have been able to fight against Jun Jinxing, but now that they were fighting head-on, he was not weak at all. What did Lian Jiufeng do to Yi Wuye? Bang! At this moment, a muffled explosion was heard, and the two figures retreated. Jun Jinxing, is this all you've got? Yi Wuye stood there arrogantly and said loudly, "Do you think you can kill me with this kind of strength?" Damn it! Jun Jinxing roared, and his eyes were bloodshot. He was extremely ferocious. Are you angry now? Yi Wuye looked playful and said coldly, Jun Jinxing, you look like a dog when you're angry. Yi Wuye, I'll kill you. Jun Jinxing was completely enraged, and he roared like thunder. His silhouette was like a raging thunder as he moved crazily. Suddenly, the power of the flames in the void intensified. The rolling flames were like an endless wave that pressed down on everything. However, Yi Wuye was not afraid in the slightest. A black heavy saber appeared in his hand, and he slashed out angrily. Suddenly, the saber wave opened up a path, and the shadow of the saber was like a mountain, heading straight for Jun Jinxing. Boom! 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 The two forces collided, causing the space around them to tremble. Following that, waves of violent energy exploded outwards, spreading out in all directions. The area within a radius of hundreds of thousands of meters was instantly covered by the wild power. Jun Jinxing and Yi Wuye were completely submerged. Everyone retreated once more, looking at the chaotic void in shock. Nietion furrowed his eyebrows, his face tensed up. He was not worried about Jun Jinxing's strength. The only thing he was worried about was that Jun Jinxing could not completely control the mutated power of the bloodline and lose control again. Even though Jun Jinxing had fused with an earthly extermination astral soul, he had an almost undying body. However, if he lost control of the bloodline, he would definitely lose this battle. And if he lost, it would be 2-0. The following third battle would be meaningless. Therefore, Jun Jinxing could only win this battle. Boom! 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 In the chaotic sky, muffled sounds came continuously. In the endless waves of energy, one could vaguely see two silhouettes fighting fiercely. These two guys are too strong. The crowd was shocked by the scene in front of them. They could not help but tremble and exclaim in shock. It's only a low-level heaven punishing blood seal, but it already has such great power. Lian Jiufeng looked at the sky, and his lips curled into a cold smile. He thought to himself, in fact, he had integrated the heaven punishment blood seal into Yi Wuye's body. On one hand, he wanted Yi Wuye to help him win this battle. On the other hand, he wanted to verify how strong the heaven punishment blood seal he had condensed was. From Yi Wuye's current performance, the heaven punishing blood seal did not disappoint him. Boom! At this moment, a muffled explosion was heard. Suddenly, a wave of energy shot into the sky. Then, the two silhouettes retreated thousands of meters. They stabilized themselves almost at the same time and stood coldly in the sky. Jun Jinxing, so this is all a half-human, half-ghost monster can do. Yi Wuye's eyes were extremely cold, and he said coldly, Yi Wuye, you will die today. Jun Jinxing's eyes trembled. In his rage, he no longer cared about anything else. He roared and the fiery aura around his body rose again. It was extremely terrifying. In the next moment, a strange scene happened. The fiery energy around Jun Jianxing's body became thicker and thicker. It gradually condensed into a liquid state. Seeing this strange scene, Yuya's expression changed. He was extremely surprised. He could clearly feel that the liquefied fiery energy was many times stronger than the fiery aura from before. The scorching aura seemed to be able to burn everything. Jun Jianxing, it seems like it's time to decide the winner. Yuya smiled cold. His eyes were deep and murderous as he spoke in a deep voice. In the next moment, he stretched out his palm. Immediately, a terrifying power surged out of his palm. It was extremely dark, like a demon that had rushed out of a bottomless abyss. It had the power to devour everything. It really is the heaven-punishing blood seal. Nie Tian's eyes darkened slightly when he saw this scene. He was surprised. Previously, he had sensed the change in Yi Wuye's aura. He had suspected that Lian Jiufeng had used the heaven-punishing blood seal on Yi Wuye. Now that he saw Yi Wuye releasing the dark energy, he was sure of his guess. Yi Wuye's heaven-punishing blood seal was different from the Mu family's. However, the evil aura and the devouring power unique to the heaven-punishing demon heart were the same. However, Lian Jiufeng's heaven-punishing blood seal seemed to be even more terrifying than the emperor of the underworld. This kid is really strange. Yan Wuqi was shocked by the scene in front of him. His eyes could not help but tremble as he exclaimed, "Why does he also have the heaven-punishing blood seal?" The martial artists of the Mu family looked at Yi Wuye. Their expressions suddenly changed as they cried out in surprise. Although the aura of Yi Wuye's heaven-punishing blood seal was slightly different from theirs, there were some similarities. There was even a certain resonance between the two heaven-punishing blood seals. How could the people of the Mu family have imagined that Yi Wuye also had the heaven-punishing blood seal in his body? Kill! At this moment, Jun Jianxing roared. Suddenly, the fiery energy in his body surged crazily and condensed into a giant fiery dragon on his body. It was vivid and lifelike. The power of the three profound dragon flames has condensed into the shape of a dragon. Yan Wuqi was shocked by the scene in front of him. His expression suddenly changed as he cried out in surprise. He had never imagined that Jun Jianxing could condense the three profound dragon flames into the shape of a dragon with his strength. How strong was Jun Jianxing's bloodline power? Chapter 3856. Kaboom! Up in the sky, the shadow of the saber roared like thunder. The dark aura surged violently, as if doomsday had arrived. It was as if the world had been split apart by this terrifying saber shadow. Roar! At the same time, the flaming dragon roared. The void suddenly shook, and the power of the fire erupted like a landslide. The void actually became misty. These two guys are too terrifying. The crowd was shocked by the scene in front of them. They could not believe that Jun Jianxing and Yi Wuye could explode with such terrifying power. Kaboom! Then, the dark saber shadow and the flaming dragon collided. The void suddenly shook, and at this moment, it was as if time had stopped. Boom! Bang! 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 In the next instant, a terrifying force exploded out, and it spread madly towards the surroundings. The surging force was like a tempestuous wave that roiled without end, causing the heavens and the earth to shake without end, and the sky to rumble without end. Jun Jianxing and Yi Wuye's figures were instantly submerged. They could not even see their shadows. The crowd was so shocked that they could not speak. All of their eyes were shining brightly as they stared at the sky, as if they were expecting something. Boom, boom, boom. At this moment, the crowd heard a terrifying roar. The world was like an angry beast, constantly surging. After a long time, the chaotic time and space gradually calmed down, and the world gradually became clear. However, Jun Jianxing and Yi Wuye did not appear. Did they die together? The crowd's eyes trembled violently. They could not believe what they had seen. Cough. However, at this moment, a dry cough could be heard. Then, a blood-colored silhouette appeared. His body was trembling slightly. It was obvious that he was heavily injured. However, the corner of his mouth was curled up in a cold smile. It was extremely cold. Yi Wuye. The crowd was shocked and immediately shouted the name of this figure. They were extremely shocked. At this moment, Yi Wuye's appearance seemed to have announced that he was the winner of this battle. Could it be that Jun Jianxing was dead? Jianxing. Yin Wuqi's eyes trembled and his expression suddenly changed. He had a bad feeling in his heart. Ha ha! Jun Jianxing, in the end, you still died in my hands. At this moment, Yi Wuye began to laugh wildly. His eyes were extremely gloomy and filled with a cold and bloody intent. Really? However, before he could finish laughing, a deep voice was heard, causing the smile on his face to stiffen. Jun Jianxing, you're not dead? Yi Wuye's eyes trembled in shock. He couldn't believe his ears. At this moment, he even felt that he was hallucinating. Yi Wuye, you're the one who should die. Then, Jun Jianxing's voice was heard again. Then, a crimson figure appeared from the void, surrounded by a strange light. It looked holy and dazzling, but it was filled with an extremely dark aura of slaughter. How is this possible? The sudden scene caught Yi Wuye off guard, and he cried out in surprise. In the next instant, he could feel the presence of death approaching him. His pupils contracted as the fear in his heart reached its peak. He wanted to resist, but his hands were trembling and he couldn't lift them at all. It's over. Then, a low voice sounded in Yi Wuye's ears. Then he felt a chill on his neck and a warm liquid gushed out. His eyes trembled in shock, and he subconsciously touched his neck. However, his hands came into contact with a bloody red liquid. Fresh blood. Yi Wuye's pupils contracted again as he stared at the crimson figure in front of him in horror. He wanted to say something, but he couldn't. As his breath of life disappeared, his eyes gradually lost their color and finally froze. Jun Jianxing stood in the air, and the redness in his eyes faded. He was left with only coldness and silence, as if he was a block of ice. Yi Wuye. At this moment, a shrill scream was heard, filled with hysteria and insolence. It was Yi Qinyang. How could Yi Qinyang not be angry when he saw his direct descendant being killed? Bastard, I'll kill you. In the next instant, Yi Qinyang moved. He growled like a wild beast and slammed his palm towards Jun Jianxing. You're courting death. However, at this moment, a low voice was heard, and a huge force fell, shattering Yi Qinyang's deadly palm. Old thing, if you dare to take another step forward, you will die. Yin Wuqi's figure was like a mountain, cold and murderous. Yi Qinyang's eyes shook, and he exclaimed in shock. He couldn't help but take a few steps back, and he almost couldn't stand. Stand down. At this moment, Lian Jiufeng spoke. His voice was not loud, but it was filled with undefiable determination and dominance. Lord Lian, Yi Qinyang's eyes shook. He looked at Lian Jiufeng, and his eyes flickered. Stand down. Lian Jiufeng spoke again before he could finish. There was a murderous intent in his domineering voice. He didn't like to say the same thing twice. Yes. Yi Qinyang felt a cold, murderous aura. His eyes trembled in fear. He agreed and went back to where he came from. Nie Tian's eyes darkened when he saw this. He was confused. Yi Qinyang was an expert, so why was he so submissive in front of Lian Jiufeng? Now, help Mu Shuyan break the blood curse. At this time, Jun Jianxing suddenly raised his head and stared at Yi Qinyang. He said coldly, Kid, you haven't won yet. Yi Qinyang's eyes were murderous as he said coldly. They've won, Lian Jiufeng said indifferently before he could finish his sentence. Lord Lian, what did you say? Yi Qinyang's expression changed, and he exclaimed. He even doubted his ears. Nie Tian heard Lian Jiufeng's words and stilled. He was confused. He didn't know what Lian Jiufeng meant. I said they won. Lian Jiufeng's expression was calm, and there was no emotion in his eyes. He said, I admit defeat for the third round. Lian Jiufeng's casual words were like thunder in Yi Qinyang's ears. His mind buzzed, and his entire body shook. He almost couldn't stand. He couldn't believe what Lian Jiufeng was saying. How could Lian Jiufeng admit defeat? What's going on? Did I hear wrong? The crowd stared at Lai and Jiufeng with a strange look on their faces. They were a little confused. Nietian looked at Lai and Jiufeng and was stunned for a few seconds. Then, he came to and smiled speechlessly. Chapter 38:57. Lai and Jiufeng's sudden surrender was out of everyone's expectations. They were stunned for a long time before they finally reacted. Who was this guy? He was the one who suggested 3 matches. Now that it's his turn, he actually lost without putting up a fight. This is too ridiculous. The entire Yi family listens to him. This guy's identity is extraordinary. So what if his identity is high? He's just a coward who doesn't want to fight. The crowd discussed quietly, but did not say anything out of line. They knew that Lai Jiufeng's identity was extraordinary. If not, they would have started cursing him already. This was especially true for the Yi family martial practitioners. Every single one of them had ugly expressions on their faces, and their eyes were filled with great anger. It was clear that they blamed their failure on Lai Jiufeng. But Lai Jiufeng had an indifferent expression as if he did not hear the discussion at all. He turned to Yi Qianyang and smiled faintly. He said, "Yi Qianyang, do you not understand why I surrendered? Lord Laiyan, I do not dare." Yi Qianyang bowed slightly. Although he maintained his respect, the anger in his eyes could not be concealed. He was very wary of Lai Jiufeng. But if Lai Jiufeng did not explain what had happened, he could not help but feel disloyal. "Yi Qianyang, this battle is your Yi family's business. I do not want to interfere." Lai Jiufeng smiled faintly with a calm expression. "Then why did Lord Laiyan suggest 3 rounds? Yi Qianyang frowned and raised his head to ask. "Mph." Lai Jiufeng laughed and said, "I only suggested 3 rounds to increase the Yi family's chances of victory." "What do you mean?" Yi Qianyang frowned and continued to ask. "The key to this battle is Yi Wuya. If he wins, the Yi family wins. If he loses, the Yi family loses." Lai Jiufeng's lips curled into a smile. He said, "If it was just Yi Wuye against Jun Jianxing, the Yi family would lose. But now, the Yi family has at least won 1 round, so it's not too embarrassing. Isn't that right?" Yi Qianyang's expression froze. He did not know what to say. Lai Jiufeng was right. Yi Wuye was the key to this battle. With Yin Wuqi around, there would definitely be a battle between Yi Wuye and Jun Jianxing. Even if Yi Wuye didn't want to fight, he had to. If it was just Yi Wuye versus Jun Jianxing, the Yi clan would have lost. If Yi Wuye had won the battle just now, the Yi family would have already won. However, how could Lai Jiufeng be certain that Yi Lang would be able to defeat Mu Chongshan? "Yi Qianyang, I know what you're thinking." Lai Jiufeng chuckled. "Do you think Yi Lang could have won without me?" He didn't have any scruples at all. He didn't avoid Nietian and the Mu family at all. "Lai Jiufeng, it really was you." Nietian's eyes darkened as he said coldly, "Didn't you already know that I helped Yi Lang win the battle?" Lai Jiufeng smiled faintly and said, "I helped the Yi family win a round, and I helped them lose a round. Isn't that fair?" "Sophistry." Nietian's eyes were dark and cold. "You used despicable methods in secret, and you still talk about fairness? What a joke." "It doesn't matter." Lai Jiufeng didn't seem to care at all. He smiled faintly and said, "You've won now." He then turned to Yi Qianyang and said, "Dean Yi, please save Miss Mu." Yi Qianyang's face was cold. He was extremely unwilling and unwilling. "I don't want to say it a second time." Lai Jiufeng's eyes suddenly coldly. "Yes." Yi Qianyang couldn't help but frown. He hurriedly nodded, and then his figure flashed to Nietian's side. He said coldly, "Take me to see the eldest daughter of the Mu clan." Nietian nodded. Then, the Mu family martial practitioners took Yi Qianyang to the Mu residence. Jun Jianxing, Yin Wuqi, and the others also went to the Mu residence. Nietian wanted to go back as well, but Lai Jiufeng stopped him. "Lai Jiufeng, you've already lost. Don't tell me you still want to fight me." Nietian frowned and said coldly, "I've lost. I just want to fulfill your conditions." Lai Jiufeng smiled faintly, but his eyes were strange. He said, "I will take you to see Cher. Once this is over, I will not bother her again." "I hope so," Nietian replied indifferently. Then his eyes flashed, and he said, Lian Jiofeng, I want to know why you admitted defeat. Nye Tian, I'm well aware of your strength. I know that I'm no match for you right now. If I fight you, I'll only be humiliating myself. Lian Jiofeng was honest. He laughed and said, Moreover, this battle is meaningless to me. Whether I win or lose, I will get what I want. Is that so? Nye Tian frowned and gave a cold laugh. Is that so? Mmph. The corner of Lian Jiofeng's mouth twitched, and his eyes flashed strangely. He said, You know where the Three Lives ancestral ground is. You will definitely give me the forbidden star soul. As for the Emperor of the Netherworld, you will kill him even if I don't say it, right? Nye Tian frowned when he heard Lian Jiofeng's words. He asked coldly, Lian Jiofeng, are you that confident? Of course. Lian Jiofeng smiled again and said, I will give you 3 days. I will see you at Holy Rock Academy in 3 days. After saying that, he did not stay any longer and directly left. Holy Rock Academy. Nye Tian looked in the direction Lian Jiofeng disappeared in and frowned. He murmured, Is Cher at Holy Rock Academy? Lian Jiofeng was a vicious person, but he kept his word. Moreover, he did not know where the Three Lives ancestral ground was, so he needed Nye Tian. Nye Tian did not linger. He immediately returned to the Mu Manor. 3 days was just enough for him to deal with the Mu family's matters. A moment later, Nye Tian arrived at the Mu Manor. Yi Qingyang had already broken the heart-devouring curse for Mu Shuiyin, and everyone was gathered in the Mu Manor's main hall. Mr. Nye, please take a look. Jun Jinxing was still worried when he saw Nye Tian, so he asked Nye Tian to check on Mu Shuiyin's condition. Nye Tian used his divine sense to check on Mu Shuiyin and nodded after confirming that she was fine. Jun Jinxing let out a long breath and felt much more relaxed. They were in the Mu Manor right now, and with an expert like Yan Wuqi around, Yi Qingyang would not dare to play any tricks no matter how cunning he was. Chapter 38:58. Leave. Yan Wuqi waved his hand and said coldly when he saw Yi Qingyang nodding. Yi Qingyang's face darkened, but he didn't dare to say anything. He turned around and left. Jinxing, why didn't you let me destroy the Yi clan? Yan Wuqi asked Jun Jinxing with a frown after Yi Qingyang left. He originally wanted to wipe out the Yi clan and end things once and for all, but Jun Jinxing didn't agree. Sixth uncle, the Yi family is nothing, but Yi Qingyang is the vice dean of St. Luo School. If he dies, St. Luo School won't let it go, Jun Jinxing said in a deep voice. It's just St. Luo Academy. Why should we be afraid of it? Yan Wuqi smiled coldly. Sixth uncle, the dean of St. Luo Academy, is from the Blazing Wing clan. Jun Jinxing's face darkened. The Blazing Wing clan. Yan Wuqi's face darkened when he heard the name. After a few seconds of silence, he said, St. Luo Academy is a force of the Blazing Wing clan. No wonder. Nye Tian frowned when he heard the conversation between the uncle and his nephew. It sounded like the Blazing Wing clan was a powerful force. Then, Jun Jinxing took Mu Shuiyin to rest, and Yan Wuqi left with him. I wonder how clan leader Mu is doing. Nye Tian suddenly thought of Mu Jiuchuan and asked him to come out of the 9 superbs. Mu Jiuchuan's expression grew much better as he smiled faintly at Nye Tian. Nye Tian, clan leader Mu, are you all right? Nye Tian sensed Mu Jiuchuan's condition with his divine sense and felt relieved when he found that Mu Jiuchuan's aura had stabilized. Thank you, Lord Chinchilla and Lady Royu, for saving my life. Mu Jiuchuan nodded and expressed his gratitude sincerely. At that moment, the little fat cat appeared and said, Mu Jiuchuan, even though your condition is stable now, you can't fight anyone for the next half a year, and you can't use the heaven-punishing blood seal either. Otherwise, you'll be dead for sure if you suffer a backlash from a seal. Mu Jiuchuan nodded respectfully. It was all thanks to Fat Cat and Rui Qinyu's St. Rune Rainbow pupils that he was able to escape danger this time. Otherwise, even if he didn't die, his Yuan meridians would at least be crippled. Patriarch Mu, it's good that you're fine. Nye Tian smiled faintly, feeling relieved. Nye Tian, who is that Lian Jiofeng martial practitioner we met at the Yi Mansion? Mu Jiuchuan's eyes flashed slightly as he asked. In reality, he had already noticed that Lian Jiufeng was acting a little strange. He just never had the chance to ask Nie Tian about it. He's a member of the Three Lives clan. Nie Tian frowned. He didn't conceal anything. Three Lives clan? Mu Jiuchuan's eyes quivered after hearing Nie Tian's words. He exclaimed in shock, "How is that possible? Wasn't the Three Lives clan annihilated a long time ago?" With a bitter smile, Nie Tian explained everything that had happened to Blazing Flame Jiufeng. So that's how it is. Mu Jiuchuan's eyes trembled after he heard Nie Tian's story. In his opinion, it was all too miraculous. To his surprise, Lian Jiufeng had stolen the heaven-punishing demon heart of the hellish emperor. Then isn't the current master of heaven-punishing demon heart Lian Jiufeng? Mu Jiuchuan frowned and asked. The heaven-punishing demon heart has a main body and a secondary body. Lian Jiufeng stole the main body of the heaven-punishing demon heart from the hellish emperor, but the secondary body is still with the hellish emperor, Nie Tian said with a bitter smile. That's not possible, is it? Mu Jiuchuan frowned and looked doubtful. He said, my ancestor had interacted with the hellish emperor for a long time, but he had never heard of the heaven-punishing demon heart having a main body and a secondary body. Moreover, my ancestor once said that the hellish emperor is the only master of the heaven-punishing demon heart. No one else can become the master of heaven-punishing demon heart. Nie Tian's eyes focused. He couldn't help but ask, did Senior Mu you really say that? Absolutely. Mu Jiuchuan nodded strongly and said, because my ancestor thinks of the heaven-punishing demon heart as the Mu family's greatest enemy. My ancestor would personally tell every patriarch of the Mu family about the heaven-punishing demon heart and the heaven-punishing demon heart. My ancestor told me this himself. I remember it very clearly. That's strange. Nie Tian frowned, a strange expression on his face. If the heaven-punishing demon heart really didn't have a main body and a secondary body like Muya said, and it only recognized the hellish emperor, then what was going on with Lian Jiufeng and the hellish emperor? Could it be that the hellish emperor had given up the heaven-punishing demon heart of his own accord? What was he using Lian Jiufeng for? Nie Tian's expression changed when he thought of this possibility. He broke out in cold sweat. If that was the case, then the hellish emperor's shrewdness and planning were absolutely terrifying. Of course, there was another possibility. Even if the hellish emperor had no choice but to split the heaven-punishing demon heart into a main body and a secondary body. The Lian Jiufeng martial body was special. It was born from the heaven-punishing demon heart, so it was acknowledged by the demon heart. Between these two possibilities, Nie Tian would rather believe the second one. Nie Tian, you must be careful of Lian Jiufeng no matter what. You must be cautious when dealing with him. Mu Jiuchuan looked at Nie Tian and said, I don't know this person, but based on what he said, he is as ruthless as the hellish emperor. Nie Tian smiled faintly and nodded. I know, amen. Mu Jiuchuan nodded. Then he suddenly thought of something and said, all right, I'll give you the map of the Three Lives ancestral land. With these words, he took out a dark yellow animal skin map and handed it to Nie Tian. Nie Tian received the beast hide map and took a look. He frowned and said in astonishment, isn't this map a little too complicated? The beast hide map wasn't big, but when Qin Lai probed it with his divine sense, he could see countless light dots. These light dots were connected to form a very special pattern. Nie Tian, this is an encrypted map. I'm afraid you'll have to spend some effort to decipher it. Mu Jiuchuan nodded and said with a smile. Emin. Nie Tian nodded slightly and put the map away. He wasn't good at deciphering encrypted maps. It was better to leave it to Fat Cat or Ghost Emperor. Nie Tian, do you know the legend of the Three Lives race? Mu Jiuchuan's eyes suddenly flashed with a strange look as he asked carefully. Legend? Nie Tian was surprised. He asked what legend? Chapter 38:59. Nie Tian was rather confused by these simple words, as he didn't know what Mu Jiuchuan was trying to say. Undying and indestructible, this is the dream of all cultivators. Mu Jiuchuan's eyes trembled slightly. His eyes were filled with an indescribable passion and desire. Niet Tian, on the other hand, furrowed his brows and looked very confused. Niet Tian, do you know how many peak sky martial saint ancestors there are in the all-heaven sacred world? Mu Jiuchuan's eyes flickered as he asked Niet Tian. I don't know. Niet Tian shook his head. He made a guess and said, there are at least tens of millions of them. Tens of millions. That was his guess. After all, there were thousands of sacred worlds in the all-heaven sacred world. It was rare to see sky martial saint ancestors in the low-level sacred worlds, but there should be many in the high-level and top-level sacred worlds. Niet Tian did not know how many top-level sacred worlds there were in the all-heaven sacred world, so he could only make a guess. Tens of millions. Mu Jiuchuan glanced at Niet Tian and chuckled. Too many. Niet Tian was stunned. He said, are there only millions? Mu Jiuchuan shook his head and said, there are less than 1,000 peak sky martial saint ancestors in the entire all-heaven sacred world. A few hundred? Niet Tian frowned, and his expression flickered with astonishment. He did not expect that there were only a few hundred peak sky martial saint ancestors in the thousands of sacred worlds. It was important to note that there were hundreds of millions of martial artists in any of the sacred worlds. The number of cultivators in the heaven-punishing sacred world was unimaginable. How could he not be surprised that there were only a few hundred peak-level sky martial divine ancestors? Niet Tian, do you think a cultivator can live forever after reaching the sacred realm? Mu Jiuchuan smiled and said, have you ever seen a normal cultivator live for millions of years? This. Niet Tian frowned and was momentarily speechless. He had seen people who had lived for millions of years, but it was hard to say if they were normal people. Just like the Emperor of the Underworld, Muya, and the Ghost Emperor, they had all lived for so long in an abnormal state. Even the Scarlet Life Loyal Heart, Tian Sha, and the others had relied on other powers. Niet Tian guessed that the Scarlet Life Loyal Heart and Tian Sha, one was a star emissary, and the other was a Star Lord. They must have borrowed the power of the Star Essence Stone. Niet Tian had not seen many warriors who relied on their own strength to live for millions of years. The old ancestor Wu Ming from before should be the oldest cultivator Shao Chun had ever seen. Niet Tian, it's easy to say immortal, but very few people can actually achieve it. Mu Jiuchuan smiled faintly and said, even Saint Realm experts have a limited lifespan. It was generally believed that the maximum lifespan of a Sage Realm martial artist was 6 million years. But the true natural lifespan is 6 million. There are almost no young martial artists. Why? Niet Tian frowned and asked in astonishment. Martial artists were truly limitless. When Niet Tian was in the plane world, he thought that after breaking through to the divine state, he would be able to live as long as heaven and earth and compete with the sun and moon. However, after he broke through to the divine realm, he realized that there was a limit to the divine realm martial artists. It was only after he had broken through to the sage realm that he realized that the sage realm had its limits. After a sage realm martial artist has lived for 1 million years, their martial body will begin to weaken. Even their bloodline power will begin to weaken. At such a time, if a martial artist's strength can't be improved, his battle prowess will become weaker and weaker, Mu Jiuchuan said with a frown. Niet Tian's eyes narrowed as he remained silent. It turned out that martial artists were the same as ordinary people. When they reached a certain age, their bodies would naturally weaken. When a martial artist cultivates, he cultivates his martial body. Mu Jiuchuan let out a wry smile and said, however, no matter how strong a martial artist's martial body is, it can't withstand the tempering of time. Even Sacred Ancestor Realm experts can only maintain their peak martial bodies for tens of thousands of years or hundreds of thousands of years at most. So that's how it is, Niet Tian said, nodding. However, the fact that the Scarlet Life Loyal Heart and Tian Sha were able to maintain their peak strength seemed to have something to do with the Star Origin Stone. In that case, you should understand how terrifying the legend of immortality is. Mu Jiuchuan nodded and said, Rumor has it that the three life tribes' ancestors were a group of transcending saints who existed even before the primeval age. Transcending saints? Nyetian could not help but frown when he heard this term of address, and he exclaimed in surprise. The so-called transcending saints are existences that surpass the sages. We don't know if they really exist, so we can only call them that. Mu Jiuquan smiled faintly and said, the three life tribe originated from the transcending saints, so their bloodline contains the power of immortality and indestructibility. Nyetian's eyes focused slightly as he listened very seriously. Mu Jiuquan swept his gaze across Nyetian and continued. However, the three life tribes' power of immortality and indestructibility has been sealed since birth. Only the sacred relic of the three life tribe can activate the power of immortality and indestructibility. The look in his eyes changed slightly when he said this. A strange look appeared on his face as he said, I'm guessing that the person called Lian Jufeng wants to enter the three life ancestral land to obtain the sacred relic of the three life tribe. This? Nyetian frowned and couldn't help but chuckle. Mu Jiuquan's speculation seemed a little unrealistic. Moreover, was the legend of the three life tribes' immortality real? If Lian Jiufeng was really after the three life tribes' sacred relic, then his ambition was simply too great. Nyetan, that Lian Jiufeng probably doesn't know where the three life ancestral land is. If he knows that the map to the three life ancestral land is in your hands, I'm afraid he'll come looking for you, Mu Jiuquan said worriedly. Nyetian smiled bitterly. He didn't know what to say. Mu Jiuquan definitely didn't know that Nyetian was going to look for Lian Jiufeng. That being said, it was a good thing that the map was in Nyetian's hands. The Mu family would be a lot safer now. If the map was in the Mu family's hands, Lian Jiufeng would be willing to destroy the entire Mu family just to get the map. I'll be careful, Nyetian smiled faintly. He didn't say too much to Mu Jiuquan. Amen. Mu Jiuquan nodded. His tense expression relaxed a lot. Have a good rest, Patriarch Mu. I won't disturb you any longer. Nyetian smiled faintly and got up to leave. But it was at this moment Mu Jiuquan stood up and looked at Nyetian strangely. Nyetian, there's something I don't know if I should tell you. What is it? Nyetian frowned when he saw Mu Jiuquan's strange expression. Chapter 3860. Nyetian's expression changed when he heard Mu Jiuquan mentioning Rui Qinyu. His heart sank as he asked, what happened to Qinyu? Don't worry, Miss Rui is fine, it's just that. Mu Jiuquan frowned when he saw Nyetian being so nervous. He wanted to say something, but hesitated. But what? Nyetian pressed. The more Mu Jiuquan hesitated, the more uneasy he felt. Mu Jiuquan looked at Nyetian and let out a deep breath. When Miss Rui used her 9-color pupils to help me suppress the heaven-punishing blood seal, I sensed a bloodline power inside her body. Bloodline power? Nyetian frowned, and his expression flickered. At the same time, he was confused. Mu Jiuquan sensed a bloodline power. Was there a need to make such a big fuss? Nyetian, I believe you have some understanding of the 9 great primordial bloodlines, Mu Jiuquan said in a deep voice with a cold expression. Nyetian was surprised. He asked, could it be that Qinyu also possesses one of the 9 great primordial bloodlines? No. Mu Jiuquan's eyes flickered strangely as he shook his head and said, Miss Rui's bloodline power is stronger than the 9 great primordial bloodlines. Nyetian's eyes widened when he heard Mu Jiuquan's words. His expression changed as he was stunned for a few seconds. He could not think of any bloodline that was stronger than the 9 great primordial bloodlines. The closer a bloodline was to the primordial era, the stronger it was. The 9 great primordial bloodlines were the strongest bloodlines of the primordial era. Was there any bloodline stronger than the 9 great primordial bloodlines? Nyetian, if I'm not mistaken, the bloodline power inside Miss Rui's body is most likely the legendary Ten Destruction Evil Femme Fatale bloodline. Mu Jiuquan's eyes darkened once again as he lowered his voice and said in a cautious tone, Ten Destruction Evil Femme Fatale? Nyetian frowned. He was startled. He had never heard of such a bloodline before. At this moment, even the fat cat did not move, which meant that he did not know either. Yes, Mu Jiuquan nodded heavily and said, "It is the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman. What bloodline is this?" Nie Tian became cold, asked with a frown. The 10 Annihilation Evil Woman bloodline is something that very few people know about. Mu Jiuquan frowned and sighed. "I learned about it from my ancestor, so I know some details about the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman. In the primordial era, the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman once appeared. Furthermore, she was far stronger than any of the 9 great bloodlines of the primordial era. However, at that time, the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman was seen as an ominous sign. Thus, the strongest bloodline families of that time banded together to exterminate the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman bloodline family. Since then, the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman has never appeared in this world again. Therefore, there is no trace of the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman among the 9 great primeval bloodlines. I never thought that after millions of years, the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman would reappear in this world." After saying this, Mu Jiuquan's eyes trembled as if he was extremely afraid. The fear in his eyes seemed to be coming from his blood. Nie Tian frowned with a gloomy expression. Mu Jiuquan did not reveal too many details about the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman, but judging from his reaction, it was indeed a terrifyingly powerful bloodline power. "Patriarch Mu, are you sure that the bloodline power inside Qinya's body is the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman?" Nie Tian became cold, came down, and asked in a deep voice. "I'm sure." Mu Jiuquan nodded heavily and said, "My ancestor said that when the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman awakens, the evil woman's blood tears will gather in her eyes, and the 10 Annihilation brand will appear on her abdomen. I saw traces of the evil woman's blood tears in Miss Rain's eyes just now. If my guess is correct, the 10 Annihilation brand has already appeared on her abdomen. It's this pattern." As he spoke, Mu Jiuquan opened his palm, and a glowing diagram appeared. It was like a vortex with layers upon layers. There were exactly 10 layers to it. "This," Nie Tian frowned, his expression extremely gloomy. "Nie Tian, don't worry. I won't tell anyone about this," Mu Jiuquan said in a deep voice with a cold and solemn expression. Nie Tian acted as if he did not hear his words. He stood rooted to the spot, unable to tell if he was sad or happy. He had never imagined that Rui Qinyu's body would contain such a terrifying bloodline power. Back then, Rui Qinyu had indeed shed tears of blood when she used the 9-color eyes. Could it be that the tears of blood flowing out of the 9-color eyes were the evil woman's blood tears that Mu Jiuquan had mentioned? However, judging from Mu Jiuquan's reaction, the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman didn't seem to be a good bloodline power. It would most likely be shunned by the world if others learned about it. At this moment, Mu Jiuquan suddenly looked at Nie Tian and said in a deep voice, "Nie Tian, you have to stop the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman from awakening." "Why?" Nie Tian frowned and was taken aback. Mu Jiuquan said with a gloomy face, "When the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman awakens, she will devour the blood chi of warriors. Miss Ryu is only at the first tier of the Heavenly Mandate realm. If she awakens the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman, her martial body will not be able to bear it. I'm afraid her life will be in danger." "This," Nie Tian frowned and his face darkened. How terrifying was the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman's bloodline power? How could a Heavenly Mandate Saint Master not be able to bear its awakening power? "Mu Clan Leader, do you know how to suppress the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman?" Nie Tian became cold and asked. "I don't know." Mu Jiuquan shook his head helplessly. Nie Tian took a deep breath and said nothing. Then, he left after saying a few more words to Mu Jiuquan. After returning to his courtyard, Nie Tian immediately entered the 9 Superbs. "Nie Tian, are you all right?" Rui Qinyu frowned and asked nervously when she saw Nie Tian's strange expression. "Qinya, let me take a look at your abdomen," Nie Tian said with a frown. "You?" Rui Qinyu's pretty face froze. Her beautiful eyes flickered and she seemed a little nervous. Nie Tian's expression changed slightly. He took a step forward and lifted Rui Qianyu's clothes. However, what he saw next made his face stiffen. He was petrified. "Nya, Tian, I'm fine," Rui Qianyu said with a trembling voice. Tian, however, jerked his head up and bellowed, "You call this fine?" On Raindrop, 1,000 Leaf's lower abdomen, circles of black runes were imprinted. There were exactly 10 of them, and they emitted an extremely dark, murderous aura. Furthermore, they were deeply embedded into her flesh, and one could even see fresh blood flowing out. Rui Qianyu's pretty face was a little embarrassed. She didn't know what to say. "Why didn't you tell me?" Tian's expression was very ugly. He suddenly raised his head and was stunned again. Chapter 3861. Tian looked at Rui Qianyu and his face froze. He saw the bright blood tears flowing out from Rui Qianyu's eyes. They slowly condensed into crystal red teardrops, looking extremely strange. I'm fine." Rui Qianyu's beautiful eyes slightly trembled as she softly spoke. She raised her hand and wiped away a drop of blood tear from the corner of her eye. The moment the blood tear touched her finger, it sank into her skin and instantly disappeared. Her body slightly trembled as if she was shocked. "Wait a minute." She didn't mind and extended her hand to wipe away another drop of blood tear, but she was stopped by Tian. Tian took a step forward and reached out his hand to wipe away the red tear from Rui Qianyu's eye. However, the moment his finger touched the blood tear, he suddenly felt a burning sensation. Tian's eyes became serious, but he didn't stop. Instead, he used his finger to wipe away the blood tear. Right at this moment, a terrifying burning power was released from the blood tear, causing Tian to feel a sharp pain. Moreover, this pain instantly spread throughout his entire body. Suddenly, he felt as if his entire body was being burned, as if the blood in his body was on fire. The sudden scene caused Tian's expression to flicker, and he couldn't help but be shocked. He looked at his finger again, and the scene that entered his eyes caused his heart to tremble. His entire finger was a bloody mess, as if it was corroded by the blood tear. The flesh slowly burned, revealing the white finger bone. Rui Qianyu was frightened by the scene in front of her. Her pretty face froze, and she couldn't help but scream, "Tian, are you okay?" "I'm fine." Tian waved his hand to indicate that he was fine. At this moment, it was as if he couldn't feel any pain. His eyes were burning as he stared at the white finger, as if he was trying to sense something. He didn't expect a small drop of the evil woman's blood tear to contain such a terrifying power. Even with his powerful martial body, he was still injured to this extent by the evil woman's blood tear. The moment he was burned by the evil woman's blood tear, he felt as if his entire body was on fire. This shocked him greatly. In that instant, his entire body felt like it was about to be burned and devoured. But right at that moment, a surge of latent energy within his body forcefully devoured that burning, devouring power. That was close. At this moment, the fat cat's voice suddenly rang out. The cat's face was extremely nervous, and its entire body was covered in sweat. "Fat, what's wrong?" Tian frowned. He didn't know why Fat Cat was reacting this way. "Tian, do you know that you almost died just now?" Fat Cat's eyes narrowed and said with lingering fear, "Almost died?" Tian went blank for a moment, his face filled with astonishment. The evil woman's blood tear contains the power of the 10 Annihilation's evil woman's bloodline. Earlier, when you touched the evil woman's blood tear, it caused it to enter your body and attack your bloodline power. The fat cat's face was gloomy as she said, "If your bloodline was just a little bit weaker, you would already be a skeleton by now." Tian's face stiffened. He was stunned and couldn't react for a long time. How could he have imagined that a careless action would almost cost him his life? In that instant just now, it was actually a clash between your bloodline power and the 10 Annihilation evil woman's bloodline. The fat cat said with a gloomy face, "Although the 10 Annihilation evil woman hasn't awakened yet, it's already stronger than most bloodline powers. Fortunately, you have the God Fiend nascent embryo body. Otherwise, you would have been annihilated. Evil woman, you'll be instantly devoured. Is the 10 annihilation evil woman really that scary? Nyetian swallowed his saliva after hearing the fat cat's words. Just how powerful was the 10 annihilation evil woman's bloodline? It almost burned his god-fiend embryo body even though it hadn't awakened yet. This was too frightening. Such a powerful bloodline power was too frightening. Yes, the fat cat nodded and said, the 10 annihilation evil woman was born before the primordial era. It's the taboo of the taboo. This, Nyetian's expression froze again as he suddenly asked, could it be that the 10 annihilation evil woman is even scarier than the god-fiend embryo body? I don't know either. The fat cat shook her head and smiled wryly. The current 10 annihilation evil woman is indeed not as strong as the god-fiend embryo body, but it hasn't awakened yet. Once it awakens in the future, it's hard to say who will be the weaker one. Nyetian's pupils shrank. One could imagine the fear in his heart. No wonder Mu Jiuquan was so afraid of the 10 annihilation evil woman. Even the mere mention of it made him tremble with fear. Fat, how much do you know about the 10 annihilation evil woman? Nyetian became cold and asked in a deep voice. Previously, he thought that the fat cat had never heard of the 10 annihilation evil woman, but now it seemed that the latter knew quite a bit about it. The fat cat's eyes darkened. After a moment of silence, she said, the 9 heavens evil woman descends to kill, the 10 annihilation of all worlds. Upon hearing these words, Nyetian's eyes narrowed. His expression changed as he asked in a deep voice, what do you mean? The prophecy of world destruction. The fat cat paused for a moment before saying in a deep voice, the prophecy of world destruction? Nyetian was startled. His eyes trembled. The prophecy of world destruction from the primordial era. The 10 annihilation evil woman was not tolerated by the world because of this prophecy. In the end, her entire race was massacred. The fat cat's expression was gloomy and strange. Fat, are you saying that there's a prophecy of world destruction behind the 10 annihilation evil woman? Nyetian frowned. His eyes flickered with a strange light as he said, if Qinya awakens the 10 annihilation evil woman, she will become the world destroyer in the prophecy, right? Little fat cat nodded solemnly and fell silent. When he heard Mu Jiuquan mention the 10 annihilation evil woman, he remembered the prophecy of world destruction. Because of this, he did not say anything. He initially thought that he could suppress the 10 annihilation evil woman for the time being. He did not expect that the 10 annihilation evil woman would be more serious and powerful than he had expected. Nyetian, what do you want to do? The fat cat asked after a long time. What do you mean? Nyetian frowned and asked. She is the 10 annihilation evil woman. She carries the destiny of world destruction. The fat cat said in a deep voice. Her eyes became cold. Apocalyptic fate? The corners of Nyetian's mouth twitched as he sneered. Nyetan, don't believe in fate the most. So what if it's the 10 annihilations of the evil woman? So what if it's the apocalypse prophecy? I don't care. All I know is that she is the one I love. I want her to live. Fat Cat's face darkened, and she did not speak for a long time. He wasn't surprised by Nyetian's reaction at all. After all, he and Nyetian had been together for so long that he knew Nyetian very well. Chapter 3862. Can't suppress it anymore. Nyetian's face darkened when he heard Fat Cat's words. If you want her to live now, there are only 2 ways. Fat Cat's eyes flickered and said coldly, first, destroy her 10 annihilation evil woman bloodline. Second, help her awaken the 10 annihilation evil woman. Destroy the 10 annihilation evil woman? Nyetian was stunned, not understanding Fat Cat's meaning. The 10 annihilation evil woman's power is still not too strong. As long as we destroy Rui Qianyu's Yuan meridians and use a special method to cleanse her blood, the 10 annihilation evil woman will be completely destroyed. Fat Cat's eyes were gloomy and cold. No. Nyetian's eyes darkened, and he refused without waiting for Fat Cat to finish his words. Destroying Rui Qianyu's Yuan meridians was crueler than killing her. Nyetian, this is the safest way. If possible, you can preserve part of her cultivation, and there will be no danger to her life. Fat Cat frowned and tried to persuade Nietion. No. Nietion refused again, very decisively. Sigh. Fat Cat sighed and said, then there's only the second way. You help her awaken the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman. But she is too weak now, so awakening the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman is very risky. If she is not careful, she will be burned by the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman. Nietion's face was gloomy, and he didn't speak for a long time. Nietion, which way do you want to choose? You must think carefully. Fat Cat's eyes were gloomy, and he said in a heavy tone, Nietion, what are you thinking about? Rui Qinyu saw that Nietion didn't speak for a long time, but his expression changed again and again. She couldn't help but ask, Qinya, it's all my fault. I didn't take good care of you. Nietion looked at Rui Qinyu with a dark expression. Nietion, what are you talking about? I'm fine, Rui Qinyu said nervously when she noticed Nietion's strange expression. Qinya. Nietion's eyes trembled slightly. He wanted to say something, but he couldn't. Nietion, I didn't tell you about myself because you've been busy lately. I just don't want you to worry about me. Rui Qinyu's lips trembled slightly, her voice trembling. I know. Nietion took a deep breath and pulled the girl into his arms. The two of them hugged each other and did not speak for a long time. Nietion, you must make a choice. After a long time, Fat Cat's voice was heard again. Nietion's eyes narrowed and his body trembled slightly. Nietion, am I all right? Rui Qinyu looked up at Nietion and asked carefully. Nietion let out a long sigh and looked at Rui Qinyu for a long time. He finally made a decision. He did not hide anything and told Rui Qinyu about the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman bloodline. He also told her about her current situation. However, he did not tell her about the prophecy of the end of the world. Qinyu, the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman is the power of your bloodline. I will respect your decision. Nietion looked at Rui Qinyu and said in a deep voice. Fat Cat provided two options. One was to completely destroy the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman. However, not only would Rui Qinyu's strength be greatly reduced, but her martial arts foundation would also be completely destroyed. She would never be able to make any progress in her life. However, this method was absolutely safe. While returning to the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman, it would also allow Rui Qinyu to live on. The second option was to awaken the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman. If the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman was awakened, Rui Qinyu's strength would undergo a qualitative change. However, the risk of awakening the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman was great. It could directly cost Rui Qinyu her life. Moreover, there is also the prophecy of the end of the world behind the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman. This would definitely be a huge obstacle for Rui Qinyu in the future. It might even change her completely. Nietion did not make a choice right away. Instead, he let Rui Qinyu make her own choice. It was difficult for him to make a decision. If the same thing happened to him, he would choose to awaken his bloodline without hesitation. However, for Rui Qinyu, he was more inclined to the safer option. Rui Qinyu did not think for too long. It only took her a few seconds to make a decision. I want to awaken the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman. Qinyu, have you made up your mind? Nietion's gaze trembled slightly. He was not too surprised. In fact, under such circumstances, any powerhouse would choose the second option. However, for Rui Qinyu, there was only one reason why she chose the second option. She did not want to be a burden to Nietion. The 10 Annihilation Evil Woman was an opportunity for her to stand side by side with Nietion. During the time she spent with Nietion, she saw that Nietion was shouldering too much responsibility. She wanted to share some of it with Nietion. Rui Qinyu nodded heavily. Her beautiful eyes were filled with extreme determination. All right, Nietion forced a smile and nodded. Nietion, you have no idea what kind of enemies you will face in the future because of the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman. Fat Cat saw that Nietion and Rui Qinyu had made up their minds. Fat Cat sighed inwardly. He did not know much about the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman. However, Some of his hidden memories told him that there was a huge and dark secret behind the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman. He even had a premonition that Nietian and Rui Qinyu would be dragged into the endless abyss by the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman. However, since Nietian and Rui Qinyu had made their choice, he could only choose to accept it. Regardless of whether the choice was right or wrong, as long as it was made by himself, it was meaningful. If the path under his feet was not chosen by himself, then what was the point of living in this life? Fat, what should I do next? Nietian asked in a deep voice after completely calming down. Fat Cat was silent for a few seconds. When the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman awakens, she will devour a large amount of blood chi. Rui Qinyu's martial body will not be able to withstand the devouring power of the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman. For the next period of time, I will prepare a formation in the 9 Superbs. You need to find at least 6 young warriors with martial arts talent similar to Rainy Chinyas. Then, all of you will enter the formation together. When the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman awakens, help her withstand the devouring power of the 10 Annihilation Evil Woman. 6. Nietian's eyes narrowed and his face stiffened. Rui Qinyu's martial arts talent was very high. It was very difficult to find martial artists who were similar to her. Moreover, they had to be young martial artists, which was even more difficult.